to adjourn from executive session.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Would you say yes or no? Aye.
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 Okay, it's been moved and seconded and approved. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Grissom,
Here.
Commissioner Lee,
Here.
Mayor Pearson,
Here.
Commissioner Vetter.
Here.
Thank you.
Do I need to call Commissioner Hines?
She's been excused.
Yes, she's
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is a presentation by for the Child Advocacy Center, Isaiah's Place. Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Please state your names.
Good evening. My name is Robert Leibarger. I'm the Executive Director of Isaiah's Place.
I'm Jennifer Nisling, the Program Director for the Child Advocacy Center.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you for having us, and we're grateful for your attention. For those of you that don't know who we are and what we do, we are a nonprofit 501c3 foster care and mental health provider based here in Miami County. And we come here tonight to talk to you about a vision that we bring of broadening the scope of services that are provided locally to the children in Miami County, specifically as it relates to a child advocacy center. And I'm going to turn it over to Jen now, who will go in depth a little bit more about what a child advocacy center is and why we need it.
Sure. If you want to click ahead 2 slides. One more. Okay. So to sum up, a child advocacy center is a coordinated response to allegations in a community of child abuse and neglect. So it takes all of those mandated investigators, law enforcement, children's services, the prosecutor's office, victim witness, our mental health providers, our medical providers, everyone that typically would have a piece in investigating those cases, and it coordinates them. The reason why we want this and the reason why we have this model is to reduce the victimization that our systems cause on kids when these allegations occur. So typically in a community right now where there's not an advocacy center, you might have a child have to tell their story of abuse multiple times to multiple different people. Those interviews are happening in schools, they're happening in adult suspect interrogation rooms at police departments, and a whole host of other locations that are not child-friendly. They're not trauma-informed or trauma-sensitive, does not give the child the best chance to share their information with the investigators. So Child Advocacy Center will provide a child-friendly environment for a neutral fact-finding forensic interview with a trained specialist. So all of those people that are involved in those investigations would be present for the forensic interview. Isaiah's Place has offered to host the center itself physically in the building. So it would require the renovations of an interview room, and then we would have a separate room that the team is able to observe from. As well as providing the forensic interview, it would speed up and coordinate the response for making sure the child is connected to mental health resources. Making sure right out the gate we're assessing for that, we are getting them connected, getting them into trauma-based services, and not kind of leaving that to fall where it may. And then also medical exams. So we currently don't have a provider in Miami County who can do these types of exams. We've been working with Dayton Children's very closely and plan to have a linkage agreement. That way we're able to connect our kids immediately again after the forensic interview to get that medical exam. The other thing that a CAC provides is just a kind of a go-to. So a leader in the community for how to handle these cases, how to respond to them. So increasing awareness, increasing the education of the folks that serve children, whether it be training in our school systems, with our SROs, with child care providers. We would be that resource to provide that extra training and resource for them. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. A little bit about how we got here really quickly. For the past 20 years, I've been working in child welfare. Most recently, in the past 8.5 years, was a lead forensic interviewer at Care House. Care House is the Child Advocacy Center in Montgomery County. And we increasingly saw cases from Miami County come down 75. We had Piqua Police Department, Troy, Tip City, West Milton, Covington, more and more bringing their cases and their kiddos to us for us to do those interviews. And the conversations began, why don't we have this here? Why aren't we doing it this way in Miami County? Why, is there a way to bring this up here? Is there a way to coordinate services? Can we get a linkage agreement? So in the fall, I left Care House and came to Isaiah's Place. And we very quickly started the conversations with the Miami County commissioners. They were supportive of the model. And so then we've been meeting with our local law enforcement, our prosecutor, everyone on our multidisciplinary team. And have been working to start developing our protocol and trying to iron out the details of what this would look like here in Miami County. So what specifically we would want from the program, kind of what the nuances are of our community to be able to provide this to the kids and the families in Miami County.
So we come here this evening asking for your consideration of a contribution of $5,000 annually from the city of Piqua. We believe that collaboration is the key to the success of this with all of our surrounding cities and partners. Financial support has been requested from many different agencies and has all been warm welcomed and accepted. Recently today, we were awarded a grant from the Troy Foundation for the forensic interview equipment, which we're grateful for, so we can begin the process. Our goal is to begin and kick this program off no later than the first of the year. So we thank you for your time. If you have any questions, we're open to receive that.
This
Have you
last
had-
slide just has resources.
Have you had any
if we-
response from the Children's Service Agency here in the county?
I'm sorry, what?
Have you had any
JFS.
response from the Children's Service Agency in the county?
Yes, they've been involved, yes. So they're, the director of JFS as well as the administrator of CPS have been involved from the beginning. So they're part of our protocol building process coming to the meetings. We've been meeting about monthly since May, and that includes every law enforcement jurisdiction in the county. The prosecutor's office has been represented, victim witness, the physician from Dayton Children's, the ladies from Victim Witness, as well as the mental health providers. So all of those different team members have been represented since the beginning. Yes, sir.
Well, my only thing is it's about time.
I agree.
I'm serious. I worked in law enforcement. I worked for Children's Services. I did both.
Yes.
And having that resource here will help our officers. It'll help the victims. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a site proposed for where it would be located?
Yes, sir. It will be housed at our foster care agency in Troy. We're located on Stanfield Road across from Tractor Supply there. We have 2.5 acre campus there.
Nice.
Any other questions?
I'm going to leave some additional resources for
Please.
you all to flip
Thank
through.
you.
Please.
Thank you for your time.
We
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank
you
you.
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. So we have another presentation from the Power Project. Are those folks here? There they are. Hello.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Caleb Patton. I grew up on the south side of Piqua, attended Piqua High School, and recently graduated from Case Western Reserve University with my degree in biomechanics. This is my lovely fiance, Chloe Clark, who also grew up in Piqua and recently graduated from the University of Dayton with her degree in sociology and psychology. And we would like to present to you the Power Project. Now, first, I'd like to preface that I'm a firm believer that people come into your life for a reason, and that the smallest interaction can change the entire trajectory of one's life. This rings true to how this project came to be and the people who inspired it. A few months ago, I met this kid. I was walking my dog at the park near my house, and he asked me if I wanted to play basketball. He was a short, spunky kid standing by himself with his beat-up ball, and I said no. I told him I didn't have time and that I was actually just leaving, but I did, and I wasn't, and this haunts me. It might seem dumb, but I haven't been able to get this interaction out of my head. What if this kid was struggling and I had the tools to help, but I didn't? This is what really sparked the Power Project.
Imagine a building with everything under the same roof, a place that fosters creativity and growth, learning and relaxation, a place that is safe and consistent, inclusive and inviting, a place where you can go play basketball with friends or chill on the couch, play Nintendo Switch or read a really good book, a place to work on school projects or take a group fitness class, a place that conditions the mind and the body. Now imagine this place is in your backyard, the Moat Park Community Building to be specific. Using this place, we will create the Power Project. The Power Project will create a safe and inviting center for all teens that serves as an outlet, provides access to basic needs resources, and uses fitness and education to give our teens power over their physical, mental, and social health.
We think our community needs this, and so do you. In 2017, Miami County Public Health surveyed nearly 400 individuals and public service providers and asked what additional resources and services are necessary to address youth needs. 3/4 of the respondents argued a need for a before or after school program, and over half of these respondents identified a need for supplemental extracurricular activities for the youth in our community. Next, respondents were asked to consider potential changes that could be made to empower the youth in our community. In almost every instance, over 80% of the respondents argued that the potential changes that are made on the board right there would be great. Implementing programs that empower youth to stay in school and achieve success, connecting caring individuals, caring professionals to at-risk youth, and providing community-based resources to help address youth needs.
We believe that basic needs extend further than just your food, water, shelter ideal, and that in order to concern yourself with your future success, you cannot be concerned about just surviving now. Thus, by providing healthy snack options, personal hygiene kits, and other additional resources through Pickle Compassion Network, those who can't get them elsewhere will always get them here free of charge.
Exercise is a natural antidote for stress. High levels of exercise optimize our ability to learn, pay attention, and stay alert, all while increasing the production of brain cells. Adding physical activity to our lives makes us more socially active and boosts our confidence. Now, to touch on our initial programs, our FitEd program will allow teens to exercise, all while educating them on anything from how the human body works to nutrition and healthy lifestyle choices. Our other program is Life 101, where teens will learn life knowledge tips and basic skills ranging from writing a check to changing a tire. Initially, the Power Project will function as an after-school program running on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Next, an MOU was established with the City of Piqua, granting us a long-term lease agreement for our sole usage of the building. Safety precautions for the Power Project include the following: liabilities and permission forms, background checks, extensive camera systems, and CPR first aid certifications. So what's all this going to cost? Our total budget for the Power Project is $75,000. A large majority of this budget is startup costs at 75% of this total. The startup costs can be broken down into 5 categories: programs, building renovations, furnishings, equipment, and safety and security to bring our project to life.
This park, and the whole community for that matter, was once a hub for physical activity and social connection. From school dances to sports competitions, there was always something happening, and that's thanks to Mr. Moat himself. Raymond Moat was not only an educator, but a coach and an athletic director, and he dedicated his life to the physical well-being of our youth. We would be doing this park and the community a disservice by not restoring Moat Park to the way it once was and giving our youth a space they can call their own.
Our kids deserve this, and I didn't fully understand until I told the little boy at the park that I was too busy to play basketball. So this is for him and every other kid like him. Thank you.
All right.
All right, we will now pass it over to the judges for question and answer.
How do you see the work proposed in your pitch expanding over time if the launch is successful?
So We're limited to the current building that is at Moat Park right now, but that doesn't limit us at all. If you've been to Moat Park, you can clearly see that is an extremely large park. Not to mention that a lot of Upper Moat goes kind of unseen. It's not been used heavily for a long time, but it was used heavily a long time ago. There are plenty of options to possibly expand the building, to expand the programs, and expand our outreach. We start with teens and adolescents right now because we see that as the group that needs the highest need for what we see. However, youth can be addressed. It expands to possibly anything else. Seniors, anything that you could possibly think of there.
Thank you.
You mentioned the private and public partnership with the city of Piqua
Yes.
and at least one local business.
Yes.
Can you please elaborate on the established partnerships and how they will shape the success of your project?
Yeah, so our public-private partnership, for now, we've got a few things in the works, but as soon as we can fully pitch our idea and tell everybody about what we're telling you all now, it'll be a lot easier to get funding and support that way. But our public-private partnership for now is going to be Southtown Sports and Recreation, and then obviously we are through Pickle Compassion Network, so we have all of their connections as well.
Quickly do you expect to be able to move forward with the work that needs to be done at Moat Park, and what is your proposed open date?
Okay, so we do not have a strict open date as of now. It's going to depend a lot on contract times and materials, and as I'm sure a lot of you know, it's been a little bit difficult to get materials lately, so that's going to depend on a lot of variables, but we're hoping by summer, maybe spring. We don't want to give an exact date yet because we really want to make this something special. So we don't just want to slap some paint on the thing and call it good. We want this to be just amazing. So, thank you.
And how does it complement the work being done by other existing entities such as the Miami County YMCA?
Yeah, so we hope to work in conjunction with the YMCA. We see that there is additional need. If you follow the statistics we mentioned, there is additional need in our community. So we want to work with the YMCA and the Lincoln Center and everybody else that's trying to solve the same problem that we see and work in conjunction with them to solve it together.
Additionally, I'd like to add on to that they're separate entities, and while I love the YMCA, it's a great facility, and I think it does great things for getting kids active, and not just kids, but anybody who has a membership there. But to add on to that, we want the teens that come to our program, and hopefully the kids later on in the future, to be able to come here, and the thing is there's no money involved here. Everything is free of charge. They have access to healthy snack options, personal hygiene kits, and expanded resources that have already existed but aren't as talked about through Piqua Compassion Network. We want to get that out there so that is the prime difference between these two things. I think that they can mesh well, but overall they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
We're just trying to solve the same problem.
All right, any other questions?
What is the staffing model of the Power Project, and how will you make the employee volunteer model work?
Okay, absolutely. So through Pickle Compassion Network, they've been running for 15 years with strictly volunteer base. So we were going to use their current connections to do our staffing as well as our public-private partnerships that we have established and will continue to establish. So we want to run volunteer base. Obviously, Caleb and I will be volunteering our time, but we will have a few other people as well who will be the primary individuals running the place, and then we want to have a lot of volunteers in addition.
To add on to that, I will coach the Fit Ed program and the Life 101 program. Whoever is there running that is great, but it's kind of something that just exists.
Yeah.
Starting out, because of the size of the building, you only really need in our model, 3 volunteers to help this thing kind of flow. There's a check-in person that's making sure that everybody who's coming in and going out is either attended to or has signed liability forms so they can go in there without any issues. That also includes adults that may be coming there because you have to make sure everybody's background checked. Additionally, we only need 1 person in the gym. You need 1 person kind of floating between the 2 areas so that everything kind of flows, right? And make sure that everything is attended to in that way as well. So in the beginning, We run with 3 volunteers, and we can only build from there if we get more. So,
Thank you very much. A big round of applause for the Power Project.
Thank you.
So I am Rebecca Susek, and I am the Executive Director of Piqua Compassion Network.
I'm Chloe Clark. I am the project coordinator.
my name is Caleb Patton. I'll be the recreational director for this program.
And for some of the members of the audience that don't realize what that video, that was a competition that the Piqua Community Foundation put out for nonprofits, and we submitted our project, and we presented to the community, and I'm pleased to say that we won. And with that, we got the $50,000. We said in our presentation that we needed $75,000. We raised an additional over $5,000 from the community who voted for this project, and we have since been able to raise other monies that we are just very short of having that full $75,000. Again, we are here tonight to get the project off the ground with the city.
Is there any straight off the bat questions that we can answer?
Sure. Who are all the public-private partners with the project?
So we would like to work with the city of Piqua. We are attempting to work in conjunction with the YMCA, where we'd love to collaborate with them. We have some additional partners through the Piqua Compassion Network. So we will be working those out, but it's a lot of hurry up and wait right now because we want to get the project going and see how we can adapt this to fit our community need. So we don't want to establish programs right off the bat.
Sure.
Because the objective, the biggest importance is the place. So it's a place first, and then programs like the FitEd program and the Life 101 program are additional. So yeah.
And some of the partnerships that we've already established is the Miami County Dental Clinic, the Miami County Health Department coming in and offering some of their programs. We also have Verizon that has stepped up, and another is our Miami County Commissioners have awarded money to Piqua Compassion Network to use toward this project. Not to mention the private donors that have stepped up.
Have there been other locations that you looked at besides Moot Park?
We really feel that Moat Park is underused, and we feel that it would house our project the best. If we want to look at the 2017 Parks Master Plan analysis of the building was described as aging and tired and was given a rating of poor and fair, and we feel that the building is just being underutilized. If you want to go ahead and pass these around, we can come in, if you think. But yeah, we just feel like this building, from where it's sitting in the south side of Piqua, that's our area with the most need. And its accessibility to the bike path and everywhere around there. We've been in talks with the schools to try to create a bus stop. We're really trying to utilize this building in a way that it hasn't been used in so many years and restore it to its prior glory from Raymond Moat. So yeah.
Sounds like Moat Park is your choice.
It is.
And there have
Absolutely.
been no other buildings you've looked at.
I don't think anything would adequately house our project in a better way than Moat Park would.
We did look at a building that was not handicap accessible. The problem is some of the buildings that are available, we want to be able to go in and not have stairs, and we have to look at parking. And some of the outdoor activities, that afforded us a good area that we can do some sports and have some competitions and bring in, actually, we have a vision to do like a winter festival, and we'd like to do an October fall festival and get not just the kids, but the community. That community together is a tight-knit community, as you well know, and being able to get folks not only to the park for other activities, they sled in the winter, and to be able to piggyback on the things that the outdoor activities and doing more of a year-round.
And further, just to for any clarification purposes, we would only be talking about the inside of the building. The park itself would, of course, be public use. We would just love to host events there. We have baseball diamonds, we have basketball courts. You know, it's in literally the perfect location, and it's sitting in the south side of Piqua, and it's underutilized. So,
hosting events, would you guys consider hosting dances for the teens?
absolutely, yeah.
Like that idea?
Have you received any input from other stakeholders who are interested in the Moat Park building?
We have not. I know Amy will touch on that a little more when we go over leasing details, but we haven't had any interest since we announced, and that video took place in March. Pitch Piqua was March 3rd. So we haven't had anybody that says, oh, like, you know, I want it instead.
I would beg to disagree with you because Mrs. Suzik and I have talked, and the Southview Neighborhood Association was very much interested in being involved in conversations about the use of the building, and to this point, we've not been invited. So that's an issue.
We did have a meeting, and I think some of the issues were that, and we had a meeting with Southtown, some of the folks there. We want to use it exclusively for the youth to get it started, and being able to collaborate and have meetings there. We just want to kind of keep the building to, you know, the youth to start out.
Understand that the lease agreement, which we will discuss later,
Yes.
is for exclusive use of the building.
Yes.
For the time being, yes.
Any other
Congratulations on this project. I think it's going to be a win-win for you, for the citizens of Piqua, and for especially our children. Thank you.
One further question, please, if you don't mind. As far as safety-wise, you guys are going to put cameras in the,
Cameras are already
Yes, that's
in-
factored into the
Yes.
budget.
it's factored in the project? Will
Yes.
police have access to those cameras?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
no reason why they wouldn't, no.
Sounds good to me, then.
Any other questions? I know there'll probably be more later, but if there's anything else?
No, no, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. So we come to the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? All those in favor of approving the minutes from the September 6th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. And going to old business, we have a tabled resolution R-88-22. And at this time, we want to untable.
Yes, I'll make a motion to untable it.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Your Honor, this is a resolution accepting the annexation of 662.035 acres and 1.605 acres located in the Washington Township to the city of Piqua. This land encompasses property that extends down to Interstate 75 and slightly beyond that off of 25A. The resolutions brought before the commission tonight are solely for the annexation and also the zoning to an industrial use, which is later on. This says the resolutions tonight have nothing to do with special use permits. There's also an agreement between the developer and the city of Piqua, which is later on in the resolutions also.
Agreement.
Who's going to present?
He just did.
Okay. All right.
Any questions?
Are there any questions?
I have one. I think a lot of people are concerned that there's going to be a quarry going in at this property. What we're voting on is not for that special use. It's just strictly for
This
the
is strictly for the
correct?
annexation. The special use actually goes through the planning commission, and the planning commission makes recommendations and votes on that.
All right, so we're not approving, just to repeat, so everybody understands, we're not approving anything with the quarry, just the annexation of the property.
This resolution deals with the annexation of the
Exactly.
property.
Thank you.
Is it possible that the resolution can be divided into two parts?
No.
It's an all or nothing.
Resolution is an annexation resolution, and it's for the entire 600 and some odd acres, yes.
Okay.
Any other comments from commissioners? Comments from our citizens? All right, hearing none.
Yep.
Good.
Good afternoon. Michael Sherry, 430 Fox Drive, Piqua. It's my understanding that if you guys annex the property and agree to zone it I-2 based on what the Planning Commission approved last week, which we as citizens still have unanswered questions on, that the mine will be a shoe-in, that in effect by voting for the annexation and the I-2 zoning, that allows the special use permit to be in effect. That's my understanding.
We're not voting on the I-2
You are voting on the I-2 later on.
later on.
Yes,
Not right now.
that's correct.
Just the annexation for right now.
You will vote tonight on the I-2, yes.
Very good.
But that I-2 is that encompasses what it's going to be zoned. The special use permit is a cutout from that. It would allow them to apply for it.
Which they've already been approved by the Planning Commission based on last week's meeting.
The Planning Commission has approved the special use permit.
So tonight, if we approve the annexation and we approve the I-2 zoning, which is what we're voting on tonight, it's my understanding there will be the possibility of a mine on that property, that nothing will stop it.
There's a possibility. I mean, there's a possibility that it could be stopped. I don't know at this point.
But it's also my understanding if there is an initiative to stop it, it's probably best to stop it at this point.
Well, I think what we're looking at right now is the annexation, and that's what we're looking at right now. I think the
But it's
people
also
just-
my understanding, it was brought up last week at the Planning Commission, that the Planning Commission voted on a use for a property that is not inside the city yet, nor zoned inside the city yet. So the Planning Commission, it's perceived legally that they overstepped their bounds by approving a special use permit on a property that's not even in the city limits yet, so they stepped the gun. So by therefore you guys voting to annex the property into the city and therefore voting for I-2 zoning, now we have a rock quarry in our backyard.
If you believe there is a defect in the special use permit, you do have remedies through the court system to proceed in that manner.
And we are pursuing those.
What we are dealing with tonight is solely the annexation of the property, which is a huge annexation for the city of Piqua and its future development, and the zoning of that as industrial.
Sure.
As far as the special use permit, that is something that would be addressed through the Planning Commission or the court system at a later date.
Sure, and we'll pursue that. I put a video out on Facebook today. Did all of you commissioners see that?
Did.
Yes.
My concern of this particular developer is they already own an industrial park inside the city limits, the Wyndham Industrial Park. There's 200 unused acres attached to that park. The reason I'm familiar, there's a building for sale out there, and I started looking around. All but one empty lot in that industrial park is owned by Piqua Materials or their sister companies. They've got a few. To my understanding, none of that land has ever been marketed. Piqua Materials has never brought a developer in to build any buildings on that land. And I don't even see a for sale sign. If I wanted to build a building out there, if I liked the spot, I don't even know who to contact. That's a concern of mine if we're expecting this same developer to develop along 25A in Farrington, because that's the agreement. If you look at the agreement that we're going to review later tonight, that's the agreement that the city has with Piqua Materials, is that Piqua Materials will develop this land. I don't see a track record with them doing that in the city of Piqua. I see a track record of digging a hole in the ground, which is what their business is, and I commend them for that. But I don't see them as a developer, so that's my concern there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, come
Anyone
forward.
else?
State your name and your address.
I'm Rocky Bowermaster. I live at 6050 Drake Road, just across the street from that gentleman, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm going to echo his concerns. We moved out there for a specific reason, but any impact to the residents so far, to my knowledge, we have not been included in any of the discussions, studies, et cetera. So from my standpoint, I can't fathom how anything would be allowed to progress without our, at least, I'm not saying you got to get our permission, but
need
to
some-
consult for safety studies, wells, impact. My house is an older structure. It was built in 1901. So what impact or vibration is going to have on my foundation? My insurance is not going to cover that damage. So all of these considerations, feels like this is just kind of slipped in. However the process works is fine. But the moment for public commentary just kind of came and went without.
They did have a meeting.
Understood.
And they
Understood.
also, if you came to that meeting, the representatives from the quarry also explained how they have to do testing, that they have to submit it through, they have to go through environmental testing, they have to satisfy a lot of issues in order to do what they need to do there. If it does go in there, it's not as though they can just blast and destroy your house, or just, one man came and thought it was going to destroy his well. They have to comply with certain regulations and laws, and they're here, and they might be able to explain that tonight in order to do what they want to do. All this is tonight is we're annexing the property into the city of Piqua and zoning it I believe it's I-2 industrial.
Understood. Just want to make my, as a resident who will be instantly, pretty immediately impacted, we just need to be heard. So thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Rocky.
you for
Yep.
your concern.
Sure, come on.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joshua Blackshire, 1301 Spruce Street in Troy, Ohio. As a property manager of the Paul Sherry Industrial Park for the past 17 years, I was asked by Paul Sherry, who owns the Paul Sherry Industrial Park, to read a letter written by him on his behalf.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate you.
So I'll read it for all you guys to hear. It says, I, Paul Sherry, am 89 years old and still active in the industrial park. I farmed the industrial park from the start in 1991 when I purchased it at a sheriff's sale. I had no idea where I was going to get the money. The bank was there that held the lien on the property, and their president told me to come to the bank at 9 a.m. the following morning to meet their board of directors. Being in the car business on the north side of Piqua starting in 1958, I was working 70 hours a week. I was very active on the Piqua Improvement Corporation's development board, independent from the city. That was run by Don Allen. He's the reason that I developed the industrial park. He was a great supporter of Piqua, Ohio, and he taught me to do the same, which I certainly am today. Lucy Fest replaced Don Allen on the Piqua Improvement Corporation, which was still independent from the city when he retired. I think she worked around the clock. She was very active in her job and leased the buildings as fast as I could build them. In developing the industrial park, I learned real quick that no industry would move in, so I started to build spec buildings. Every building in the park since then was a spec building that I built and leased out, never having a company that would move into the industrial park without a building. We brought in several small businesses out of Troy and northern Dayton, which are still there today. Now with notice from one of my good tenants that has been there for years telling me that he would be moving if a mine quarry would go next door, it got my attention. The original mine quarry has come up several times in leasing industrial buildings in the Paul Sherry Industrial Park. I'm concerned, so I put on hold an extension of the Homer Drive project back to the new water tower, which was on land that I donated to the city, and 7 new spec buildings. The industry has become high-tech today, and I don't believe any industry will move in next to a mine quarry. This is common knowledge throughout the industry. I want to invite everybody who has read this letter to drive through the industrial park that I'm really proud of. Thank you for listening, Paul Sherry.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Oh,
I'm
thanks,
pretty limited.
Josh. I appreciate it. Self-explanatory, yes.
Very clear.
Anyone else?
Hi, Paige Demon. I have a question regarding this too. Where is this location in conjunction to the nuclear plant that was closed off?
Across the river.
Just across the river from the nuclear
south.
plant? So it's my understanding that the nuclear plant was encased in cement. Is that still the case? Has there been any studies at all that anybody's gone out there and checked the radiation levels, or how is that process working?
I can answer that. The Department of Energy is currently out there doing demolition on the site, so it's being monitored and it'll be capped when they're done.
Okay, so do we know what the levels are? Is that going to be published anywhere?
I'm sure that all their records are, public record that can be either looked up online or we can get you a copy.
Yeah, if you can, I'd like that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Anyone else want to speak? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Tom Homan. I'm from 1803 Nicklin Avenue. So it seemed like there was an implication that this old business, R8822, that was completely separate from new business 6, which was resolution 10922, that the rezoning of that area to I2 is completely independent from the decision to annex it. And so my question is, if that's true, what are some alternative zoning considerations that you might make for that property if you annex it and the R10922 does not pass? If you are not able to rezone it as I2, what are some other ideas that you guys might have for use of that annexed property, if indeed these are separate issues? And I will leave everybody with that if there's no response. Thank you.
Put any kind of business you want out there. It doesn't have to be industrial. It doesn't get I2.
Yeah.
Here comes someone.
Jim Sherry, 5949 Drake Road. Just real quick to add on to my brother a little bit, we did form a complaint with the current mine with some issues on the road that they said was not going to be an issue with the new, supposedly quarry if it does get passed. And the formal complaint was at the EPA and Department of Natural Resources, if I'm not mistaken. And that's been a week ago, and we still haven't heard anything back from them. So what I'm getting at, guys, if Joe Blow's well goes dry, I'm using this as an example out of many. We call somebody, and now we're waiting a week, and Jim Sherry's out of water. This stuff's been looked at, from their perspective with all their professionals that they have on their team. That's fine, but 7 days or 6 days, however it was since I got the letter, maybe less than that, to come to a planning meeting and get all my ducks in a row, and it's just not feasible, guys. I mean, you guys have an obligation to look at the health of all the employees in that industrial park, which you guys got my email. There's over 1,000 of them. It's your responsibility. You got to check that box. You got to make sure you're making the right decision. Mm-hmm. They're trying to push this under the rug a little bit, by trying to push this all together, in my opinion. And I think it really needs to be considered. It comes down to you guys. You guys are the boss, so you got to make that decision. So I just hope you guys think about the citizens of Piqua and all the negative impacts it could have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Scott Reardon, 7 Hopewood Drive, and I have 2 properties on Fox Drive, 240 and 344, which my business, which is Atlanta Sportswear, operates there for. I'm a little confused on, I received no notification of this thing even happening. Nothing, not a letter in the mail. I heard through Jimmy he had gotten, the contact. I don't know what the procedures are on things like this, but I think our one building's within 1/3 of a mile of where the proposed mine's going to be. Our other building's about 1/4 of a mile. And if I was out of town, I would have known anything was going on here. So that's a concern of mine, how the process is supposed to work, or do we just you got to read the paper and find out there's a meeting and then just show up? But Jimmy did a good job of trying, lining up an attorney to do this that has background on this. So, but we didn't have a chance to prepare anything. I heard the group, from Piqua Materials saying how vibration could go a mile out. They would come in and inspect your floors before they start blasting, whenever that may be, a year or 2 from now. And then if you had cracks in addition to what you already had, they would fix those cracks. My business is kind of sensitive. We have equipment that prints T-shirts. It has to be completely calibrated. We deal with a lot of huge big customers. We deal with the NFL, NBA, hockey, baseball. That's through Fanatics, and also about 250 universities. We not only have to have, we have compliance audits every year. Those they involve quality, human rights issues for the employees, health and safety, in the air that they're breathing inside that plant, the chemicals that we're using, all has to be in compliance. When they have these factories overseas and they run into problems with air quality, a few years ago, and I think it was Indonesia, a factory collapsed and 1,500 people died, and that factory happened to be doing Nike stuff, which is what we do. And Nike, if our air quality wasn't deemed up to suit because we have maybe the dust coming into our building, and once it gets into our building, we have equipment that is, I don't know if that dust could catch on fire or not, but, we lost a building out there in Sherry Industrial Park about 3 years ago because of the dust from the sandblasting they were doing on the metal frames and everything else, burnt completely to the ground. So the overhead gas heaters, we have gas, all of our dryers are gas, so if that dust would, again, I don't know if it would ignite or if it wouldn't, but if it gets in our building and our people are breathing it, they can go to Fanatics, we have to be in complete compliance. They can file a complaint that they're breathing the quality of air that could cause cancer, respiratory problems, and they can shut us down at any time. Fanatics would come in, audit it. If we were out of compliance, that would be the end of Fanatics. Now, I could still operate with my other customers that don't have those type restrictions, but my other big customer is Haynes Champion, which happens to have the Ohio State license. They service every Walmart store in the country. We're one of their big producers. And then if the dust does get into my building, on 240 Fox Drive, I have about a little over 2 million T-shirts in there. I have to have every color for every team in every league, on hand all the time. And our process would be deeply compromised if I had to sit there and, we got maybe every day we print about 20,000 shirts. So in that process, if I got 20,000 we're printing, there's probably 40 to 60,000 on the floor waiting for packaging that's just our process. So I understand that this is for the annexation tonight, and I really have no problem if that's strictly an industrial park to be developed. No problem. If there's a mine there, I'm probably going to be, hopefully I'd have enough time. I'd have to uproot my operation, take it to another city, start hiring people there that would be in that city, and then just, I'd have to call it a day. We can't operate in that situation. I couldn't cover compliance for the human resource end of it, and I couldn't cover compliance with the stuff I'd have to work around. If I got to recalibrate a machine, that takes about 4 hours. We've got 14 machines, and each one of those machines can produce roughly 600 shirts an hour. It's a fast-moving process if you've been in that plant before. But I just couldn't operate under those circumstances. I'm getting a engineering report from the machine manufacturer, and their concern was a couple things, and I'll get the report. I just didn't get it, the engineer report. I couldn't get it fast enough because I didn't know this thing was coming on. But what their concern would be if that floor would vibrate and that machine would get off balance and the calibration would go out on it. The machine goes, after you've seen our operation, but the machine lifts up, comes down. It's a big machine. It's got 16 screens around it. It's got a footprint of about probably 35, 40 feet in diameter. And if that machine would get dust in the shaft is about this big, we have to lube that shaft every 2 days. If that dust got in there or the machine, the floor got off balance because of vibration, then that shaft would be compromised. And if that shaft starts to peel off the metal on the up and down from the bearing, from the shaft, we'd have to send it back to Chicago to have it rebuilt.
Thank you, Mr. Reardon.
I have one other comment.
Thank you.
I did, when I was talking to the machine manufacturer, I said, are there any screen print companies that you're aware of, and they sell their equipment worldwide, that's next to a quarry? Because I would like to know what kind of effect they would have on them. They said no one would put a screen print operation next to a quarry. So that's.
Appreciate your concerns. Thank you for voicing. Is there anyone else?
Brandon Virgolito, 1111 Marwood. Spent my day trying to educate myself on this issue, both with Mike Sherry's and the Sherry's overall opinion, as well as the city's opinion. Did not get to speak to Piqua Minerals, but understand what their initiative is. I've read through the 114 pages you guys had prepared for yourselves. There's overwhelming pros and cons for this. This is a really hard thing to make a decision about
Can you
in
talk
one
a little
hearing.
louder? I'm having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me now?
Better, thank you.
So yeah, it's like an overwhelming amount of information to take in a short amount of time. I'm not sure, how long have you guys had to study this issue?
It's been tabled for some time.
Tabled for 3 or 4 meetings, 3 meetings.
Okay. So I think, the main concerns, all stem around the existence of a mine. No one is arguing they want to annex more land into the city. No one's arguing that they want an industrial park and bring in jobs. I guess there's a disservice here to the Piqua Minerals folks. If you want to benefit the community for which you share your name, don't make this an either or thing. Try to get our support, right? Hey, we're going to do this for you. And in return, we would like it if you supported this initiative. It seems very much, we're going to take our ball and go home if we don't like the way you guys treat us, which I get in business. I'm a business owner as well. I do think there's a better way to approach this. I understand there's huge regulatory requirements around this mine. This isn't the last decision to allow a mine. The EPA, ODNR, everyone has their say. But I think the really important takeaway here for the city is, if you want consensus, fight for transparency in these economic agreements. Come to us a lot sooner with, hey, we want to do this. Here's the pros, here's the cons. Here's all the things that are going to happen from a negative and positive standpoint if we do these things. The main concerns are vibration and air pollution, essentially. What are the metrics? Do we know? What are the parts per million that silica dust is allowed in the air before it becomes, harmful to somebody? Has that been presented? Is there a certain level threshold of vibration that would cause a machining center to come out of calibration, or a t-shirt press or whatever? Are those distances sufficient from the blasting operations to prevent those things? That's really what needs to be discussed here, not whether or not this is good or bad, right? We need data, and we need to make informed decisions. I would say, if I had an opinion tonight, is that this be tabled until we actually have data so that we can make an informed decision. I am all for industrial development. I think it is the one thing that will change Piqua for the better. But if it's being held hostage over the existence of another mine, is that really the best thing for the community? Is that really an intention that we want to be a part of as a community? So that's my statement. Thank you.
So I think that's part of the point I was trying to bring up earlier, is this is just for that annexation, so
This
that
is
we
solely
have the
for the
time to kind of work through
annexation,
some
and
of that data.
we are limited on time on when we can pass these, we have spent about half the time, if I'm correct, if not a little bit more of that. So to table it again, it would just delay matters, and it puts the annexation at risk also.
So we'll get to the industrial use later on the next
Yes.
resolution, but I appreciate your comments, because that's some of the concerns I think that we do want to address and do the
Big time.
analysis. But right now, the topic's just the annexation.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Julia Perkins. I live at 811 McKinley Avenue. I'm not a business owner. I'm just a resident of Piqua. My house is pretty much a slab home, 2x4s and sheetrock on a slab. It's McKinley Avenue, maybe a mile from the proposed site for the granite. Do we really need this annexation in order to have Piqua Granite move And do we really need the annexation anyway to bring more business into Piqua? We have a lot of other properties available in town, businesses that are already established but are going out of business, so buildings available. We have several industrial parks now that actually have lots available. But yeah, my main concern is again the quarry, but also pollution. Businesses add more pollution. I already have lots of neighbors that have cancer from previous farmers mostly. Yeah, do we really need this to keep business in Piqua or to improve the business structure? My main concern is, you know, do we really need it? There's lots of other properties available. So just a thing to think about. And the water situation. We pay a lot of money for water in Piqua. If something should happen to the wells, can we afford to fix them? That's all. I didn't have much to say.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I mean, I'll be happy to address some of those. I think from at least my perspective with the annexation, I-75 is one of the last developed corridors in the state of Ohio. For the city of Piqua to be able to annex that in and then be able to contribute to our city versus the county, I think that's worthwhile of taking a look at.
And if we don't, somebody else will come in and take that property. I mean, we need to have that and that tax base within our city, not necessarily within Troy, because Troy may come in and try and grab that property. So.
Dave Fishback, 615 West Green Street. I guess my only real concern, I get the annexation part of it.
Yep.
You know, but legally, if you vote for the annexation, I've heard a lot more discussion on that kicks in all this other stuff, then we don't have a voice later on after tonight. If the annexation goes in, you change it, are there key things in there that just chicka 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 ching, and now we have no say? Because I mean, I'm usually here and there's 4 people.
Oh, yeah.
And 2 of them are doing a presentation. So I don't think people want a quarry.
No, I understand that.
We don't need another big hole. I'm for business going in there all day long and for us having that land.
I'm with you.
But I don't want it to be next week, oh, well, no, this happened and now we don't have a say anymore. So can you guys say, if you vote for the annexation and you vote for the zone change, that we still have a say?
Can we say that, Frank? Because
Mr.
I
Schmeezing
think
probably a little better to answer that question than I am, right?
Who is?
Mr. Schmeezing.
If I may, I'll respond to that. So the process, and I think it's not been completely explained, you've got several items involved here. One is the annexation, which is simply bringing the territory into the municipal corporation limits. Typically, when that occurs, there's a ask of the Planning Commission to assign the appropriate zoning designation upon the annexation being completed. That's the other item this evening. The territory we're talking about is identified in our comprehensive plan as a strategic growth opportunity for economic expansion purposes. The I-2 zoning designation is what seems appropriate and what the Planning Commission has recommended. The other items that's being discussed, the special use, is related to what the owner would like to do with the property should the annexation and the zoning fall into place. And it's conditioned upon those 2 things happening. It is also dependent upon the preliminary plat that was approved by the Planning Commission being followed up with a final plat from the developer submitted to the Planning Commission, who then would refer it to City Commission. So the final plat is subject to the Planning Commission review before the land can develop as proposed with the special use. The special use authorized by the Planning Commission only authorizes us to entertain a permit request for that use. It doesn't mean they have authorization or the permit to do it. So they still have to satisfy all the applicable zoning standards, which also reference all the applicable state and federal standards, which means all those things that come from the OEPA for dust mitigation, all those things that come from ODNR for vibrations, and all the other regulatory requirements, which concerns notwithstanding, they're real. And the Planning Commission was cognizant of that in their recommendation on the special use, and stating that there could be no items that will occur that will be deleterious to the adjoining property owners or something to that effect. So they were cautious in saying that the quarry can only occur if they can mitigate all of these concerns, vibrations as it relates to tolerances on machines, concerns with groundwater and wells and all those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, the preliminary plat, which was approved, only allows now for the property owner to come back with a final plat and seek approval or recommendation of approval from Planning Commission, who then refers that to City Commission, who has the final say on whether the final plat is approved.
So the zoning committee, or the zoning committee, the planning committee, they haven't said like, no, we're suggesting to these guys we get a quarry. They're just saying that they can, if they follow all these rules, these guys can at least consider it.
When they look at a special use, there's 4 criteria that they're supposed to evaluate. And if the applicant demonstrates that they can satisfy those 4 criteria, then their duty is really to authorize that use. The use is otherwise permitted in the district, provided those four criteria, those boxes can be checked. So it would be somewhat legislating from the bench if they were to say, hey, you've satisfied these 4 criteria, but we're going to say no.
Right.
That's not their role.
Sweet. Don't do it.
So again, tonight's legislation first is on the annexation, and the next is to, later on, it's regarding zoning it as a I-2 designation. Mr. Smeeze, I think, just did a good job of explaining all the necessary steps to go forward with the special use permit.
Debbie Stein, 1810 Carroll Drive. I have a couple just common sense questions. So we've got Pickle Materials that they're going to come out and they're going to put a quarry there, and we're going to mine it. And then you have developable land around that site, and you really believe that they're going to put, somebody's going to come in and put a spec building, a big manufacturing building at that location, at that site? I mean, do you honestly, all of you think that would occur?
I have those same concerns.
Please?
I said I have those same concerns.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm just asking a question.
You can ask.
Okay, no answer? Okay.
Yeah, I don't want, I'm not liking it. I have the same concern.
I just hope too that you truly are listening to these business owners that have been here a very long time. They have committed resources, they have committed money, they have sponsored so many events in this community. They've got 1,000 employees out there. What is Pickle Materials going to bring to the plate? 6 employees? That's what, 6 or 4? I mean, you guys know. Do you know? Do any of you know? What? Anybody?
I'm confused what your question is.
Yeah.
The question is, how many employees is Pickle Materials going to bring to that site to do mining?
In my response, the biggest focus I'm looking at is that annexation and industrial use at this point.
That's all I'm looking at right now.
Look and bring some of that and some of those employees to that.
Once you
But I
pass this
understand the
annexation, you're
concerns.
going to go straight to rezone. Special use has already been approved. You've already got an economic development plan in place for roadway construction, for the city to put in roads, all your utilities, all your lighting, your police, your fire, and you have no source of funding to be determined on your staff report. You do not know where you're getting your money to do this.
And those were the concerns too, to see at what point would that come to us for that special use permit. Right now, I'm focused on that industrial use and the annexation
Once
piece.
you start passing all this stuff this evening, you're pretty much, you're telling them, we're done, we're moving ahead. This is more important than you are and you have been So I strongly, as a citizen, as somebody working in government, I encourage you to truly listen to what they're saying and take to heart their concerns.
Very much do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. So at this point, anyone else? Then I would entertain a motion to adopt Resolution R-88-22.
I'll make second.
You'll make a motion?
Oh, I thought she made a motion. Yeah, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution R-88-22.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Grissom,
Aye.
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Mayor Pearson,
Aye.
Commissioner Vetter.
No.
Thank you. Resolution adopted. Moving on to new business, resolution number R-104-22.
A resolution approving the use of city funds for the Moat Park Improvement Project.
Good evening, Commissioners. Changing gears, the next two items refer to the Moat Park Community Center. This first resolution before you is asking for authorization to utilize city funds for facility improvements at the Moat Park Community Center. There's been multiple funding sources, grants, and other funding that has come into the city in 2022. A lot of it in regards to pandemic and pandemic relief. What we're looking for is to utilize some of that excess funding to begin a remodeling project at the Moat Park Community Center in regards to upgrades that are needed to make the facility ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act, standard compliant. We know that several things need to be addressed at the facility, including restrooms, sidewalks, and parking areas do not currently meet the standards. This project was not originally budgeted for 2022, but the funding is now available due to these other sources of money coming in.
Is this project tied to anything else? Are there any kind of restraints, preconditions, strings that are attached to it?
No, these are upgrades and things that are necessary to meet the obligations of the ADA compliance with the building.
What is the actual expenditures? It doesn't say.
So in the resolution, it authorizes up to $80,000 for 2022.
Is that ARPA money?
It's not ARPA money. It's money that is now available because of ARPA money coming into the city and other funding. It has freed up some city funds that we could now utilize for this project and others this year. And the reason we're looking at moving forward is there's a lot of preliminary work that would need to be done to move into the construction phase. So we're just looking at some of the design elements, site work, seeing how far we can move the project along this year and then move into construction as soon as we can.
And so those funds pulling that are now available don't affect any other current projects then or future?
Correct.
Any other comments? Are there any citizen comments? Then I would entertain a motion for resolution number R-105-22.
104.
I'm sorry, 104-22.
Make a motion to approve that resolution.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Resolution number R-105-22.
A resolution authorizing the lease of city-owned real estate.
Commissioners, before you in this resolution is an option for the city manager to enter into a lease agreement for the Moat Park Community Center. You heard from the Power Project earlier this evening in their presentation, and that's the project that this is dealing with. The community center at Moat Park needs some upgrades. That there's definitely some deficiencies there that we're looking to address. And the funding that you just approved will help with that. There are many other things that also need to be addressed. And in your staff report, I outlined for you some of the costs involved in operating that facility, including, the city is paying for the utilities there, water, wastewater, electric, trash, all of the normal services. So that is a cost that we incur. We also have what I've phrased as reactive maintenance, which is very evident this week. If you saw the email that I provided to you, the Moat Park Community Center, because it is underutilized and vacant most of the time, it has become a magnet for vandalism. We had another incidence of vandalism Friday and over the weekend where people have broken in and caused some damage that we will have to address. And this has been an ongoing problem at the facility. In addition to that, there's cost involved with the current use of the facility as a rental property. Our staff of 4 who are also maintaining 18 parks and the linear bike path and all of those other properties and facilities also have to maintain this building and prepare it when we do have rental activities there. And those staff members are also the same people that are supporting our special events and other emergency situations on weekends and those things. So we're wearing them out, quite honestly, with some of these requirements that they have to provide for this facility. We also have preventative maintenance, which of course you have on any facility, but maintaining all the systems year after year, there needs to be upgrades and just your preventative type things that haven't quite honestly always been kept up on, so we have some expense there. Technology, we did invest in some security measures to try to limit the vandalism. We need to do more, so we certainly need to have some more funding in this realm. And then capital projects, which some of which we just discussed, making sure the building is compliant with all regulations, upgrades as needed to the mechanicals, the parking, the flooring, the furniture. We did invest $45,000 this year in repairs to the roof. So we are, trying to make some of those investments, but while making those investments and maintaining all of the other requirements for the facility are quite cumbersome. The revenue that is generated from the use of the building doesn't even come close to covering these costs that I've just outlined for you. So the Power Project came to us and pitched their proposal of using the facility for this purpose. So again, before you are basically, we've had two options at this point. We can continue to use the building as is, as a rental facility for members of not only our community, but others do use it. Or we have the Power Project, which is an option to create this public-private partnership to utilize the building as a community asset for the youth of Piqua. The lease that we are proposing is very similar to the other leases that we have in place with other nonprofit organizations. It's pretty standard in terms of what the city has entered into in the past. The staff has taken a look at this. We've presented the options to the park board at their last meeting, and we had discussed it at 2 prior park board meetings as well. And we, along with the park board, are recommending the lease option as the best and highest use of the facility.
Thank you.
You said you compared it to other leases. What other leases did you compare it to?
Well, the Parks Department has leases with all of the sports leagues. Mainly, I think we have 5 or 6 other leases in place with nonprofits, and they're similar in structure to those.
And they all grant exclusive use to the lessee?
Yes, they do.
Any comments?
What input did you receive from other stakeholder groups about the lease?
We haven't had any, besides the Southview Neighborhood Association, I haven't had any negative feedback in terms of utilizing the facility in this way. We've had, and I think, as you know, the representatives for the Power Project are here, and they could speak to other entities that they've had communications with, including the school district. They have spoken to the YMCA. I believe they've talked to some other youth-oriented programs in the community that have all expressed support.
My understanding from the YMCA is they have not been approached. I personally made that contact.
Okay, well, I know that the representatives are here if they'd like to speak to that.
Caleb Patton, 1507 Madison Avenue. Recently I just met with a couple of the directors with the Piqua branch, the Robinson branch in Troy. Just kind of talking about we wanted to kind of gauge their thoughts on our project. It wasn't anything talks of specific collaboration. However, we wanted to clear some things up. They actually hadn't heard in detail kind of what exactly we were looking for. We wanted to clear some things up. I mean, as you can tell, the YMCA, in terms of like their objectives, especially with a health-focused background and everything like that, they want to get people involved in physical activities, ranging from children all the way up to seniors. They hit a large population. Okay, we approached them with the thought that, our goal at the end of the day is to just serve the community. Okay, our project is the teens focused. Okay, but it doesn't mean that we couldn't collaborate with them. We just want to reach a kind of consensus as to how can we all mesh well at the same time. We're not trying to do anything that they're not doing. We're just trying to fill in where we can, and we want to work well together there. As far as like, we made contact with them. I was at the meeting, but as far as anything direct with that, it was just more of a sit down, kind of discuss things, get the ideas out there so they know exactly what we're trying to do, because at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is help the community.
I'm going to tell you that I had personal contact with Jim McMacken from the Y, and he had not been contacted as of my last meeting with him.
Okay. As far as a response to that, yeah, I met with him Wednesday. This is not me saying, hey, Jim McMacken supports, he's not going to come up here and just be like, I want the power project to happen. This is him being indifferent, okay? He can't support one way or the other. I did make contact with him. It wasn't anything other than just a conversation about what could be done and what we could do to possibly collaborate in the future.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me
very
ask you this, we talked earlier, and he said that the Southview, I guess she said that Southview Neighborhood Association, I guess it wasn't, they were kind of negative. Is it possible that you could collaborate with them on something?
So I can't say it's, not possible. Obviously where we're at with everything right now, for this to get going as fast as possible,
Sure.
we would like sole usage of the building.
Yeah.
Teens need to be the focus. Teen centers, it makes things more complicated when it's especially focused on just teens. It makes things more complicated when you have other age ranges involved, everything like that, other uses, of all adults, ages, everything like that. So if we can put all the focus on that in the beginning, then once things are smoothly running, we don't have to worry about things anymore. And it looks like it's just kind of a chugging along.
My stepdad, Chad Lawson over there, who I know will probably pitch in an idea or two here in a minute. But we met with the Southview Neighborhood Association and voiced our concern, and there was mixed review overall. I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think their concern was not being able to be able to say, yes, you can have this date at this time. And further that, and we didn't want to give a specific time
Sure.
or say yes or no when
You don't know yet.
We don't know yet. And as we mentioned in the pitch, that our plan right now is to hit the ground running with a 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Session, if you will. But that is not what we're going to stay at. We want to expand into the weekends. We want to host events. And so we couldn't adequately say yes or no in that exact moment as far as when we would have leasable space, if we would have leasable space, and how that would affect not only our insurance, but, Pickle Compassion Network. So.
And if I could address that issue, we would be leasing, correct me if I'm wrong, we would be the person leasing. That would put us in a position of subletting. And so we're a little bit, with our insurance that we're talking, that could put us a little bit at risk. And picking and choosing what organizations, and from what I've heard, that people that rent, being able to police that, the different organizations or individuals, really, there's been issues of alcohol use coming in, and we would be investing a heavy amount of money to the property to be able to upkeep it. And it's not saying that, down the line, I think the lease accommodates some verbiage that either one has the right to look at that down the line. The other thing that I want to make sure that the commission understands, when we put this project together, we visited the Lincoln Center, and for those of you at the commission through the city, the Lincoln Center cohabitates very, very well with the local Y in Troy. And some of the things that we're looking to do are some of those food needs and things that, when you go down the street and you see kids looking in a dumpster looking for food, they're out of school and it's about dinner time, and you get word that people are looking for, or kids are looking, and you get a phone call and say, what can we do for these kids? And they're not always little kids. They're high school, they're all ages. And what we want to do is be able to present an atmosphere of being able to pick up some of the needs. And then, as Caleb presented the young boy that he met in the park, that young boy, we are dealing with kids that don't have a lot of parental supervision, maybe after school. And so we start working with him, and he expresses the need that his goal is always to learn to swim. He didn't know how to swim. Well, the Y, we look to be a feeder organization to get them connected with the other services that maybe, if you have a child that's lost a parent to a drug overdose and they're living with a grandparent, they're looking to just survive. And what we want to do is come along and do some of those same things. We visited the Lincoln Center. We are not looking to reinvent the wheel. We've got a good model to be able to, that's tried and true. And again, that cohabitates very succinct with the local Y. So that's kind of what we're trying to do there.
There is in fact a third option, which hasn't been mentioned, and that would be modifying the lease so that there could be some other organizations that could use the building when you're not using it. And that's not built into the current lease.
I just feel that we would use the building practically around the clock. We would have somebody on site, which would deal with, I know the prior mentioned, the vandalism issues and everything else. And further, I'm not at all saying that that couldn't be an option later down the line, but that would have to be at the Power Project's discretion, and everything would work around the Power Project's program. I wouldn't feel comfortable letting any group come in and block off an hour of time and coexist with the teens, because the entire point of our project is to create a center for only teens in our community. And if you, I'm sorry, but and if you start mixing age groups and everything, you're not going to feel as comfortable, and you're not going to feel like this place belongs to you, and that would speak against our mission. So I'm not saying that it wouldn't be possible down the line, but it would be worked in around our pre-established programs and events and, time where we have blocked off for the sole usage of the teens.
And that also creates a policing for Piqua Compassion Network to manage the different organizations coming in, who's coming and going. So it creates another level of administration that we may not want to get into. What we want to do is just get this up and going, get started and look at it, because the lease does factor after 3 years. You can take a look at it. And that's not saying that as we work as partners and we bring some of the folks on board, that we wouldn't come back, because it does factor that we both have that right to look at that along the way.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Okay.
I was going to make a comment. I just think it's admirable what you're doing for our youth. I mean, growing up, it always seemed like there wasn't a lot of those options. To have it at a no-cost type of level and provide some of the services, is something special. I understand trying to start a program's not easy. And from the ground up, I can understand wanting the exclusive, can't say it, having the exclusive for it. Just having other people come in only adds complications at that aspect. I'm fully supportive of anything that's going to help our youth in the city. And I'm trying to get more people of our age involved. And you guys doing that, that just sets a precedence. So, thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Any other
All right.
questions for us?
I like it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Okay. Chris, I've been for a long time advocating for the kids.
Always for kids.
So,
Eva.
and Grissom, you're absolutely right.
I'm having trouble hearing. Could you?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I've advocated a long time for things in this
Eva,
community
could
with
you
kids.
say your name? Say
Eva
your name and
Silvers, and
address.
I live at 319 3rd.
Yep.
I've spoke to you about our kids in the community. One thing I want to bring to everybody's attention about the Power Project is that if they did follow through with this gives our youth someplace to go. We talk about community a lot here, but I want everybody to realize, like Mrs. Parsons, you can drive down your area of town and you can see that it's rapidly declining. My mother-in-law just passed away, and I can see it in her house. Bringing something for the teenage kids in this community is going to be a first and a foremost, because the younger kids are going to follow our older children, and the kids that are older and beyond that have already met some complications. We throw that word out, community, but all of these people are here because they're invested in this community. This is either where they live, where their children have grew up, where their grandchildren will grow up. And what we're seeing is that Piqua is doing a lot of things, but the one main thing that we're not doing is investing in our kids. And that's a problem, because I can tell you right now, we all work different jobs and different careers. And I've spoke with the police department, I've spoke with quite a few people about the issue. The job I have, it's a menial labor job, but however, I can see in my position a shift in our society, and it's not a good shift. I can tell you 4 months ago, my basic issue was I would have people come in every now and then and they'd want to purchase one of those little glass pipes with the rose in it. That is not our problem today. I can tell you that within a week's time I am selling and moving pipes that they're smoking meth with. There's 50 to 60 of them moving out of that a week. That's a problem, and that's a problem that we will face. You know, we have kids running around in our community with guns. We have kids that are out of control, and we don't have anything for them to do. As far as subleasing it, in theory, that would be a good ideal, but the reality with subleasing comes different points of views and different opinions. First and foremost, I believe they're absolutely right in the fact that we need to get our teenagers off the streets. We need to get them involved. We need to be involved. Because right now, with the way this town's growing and the things that everybody's proposing and the destination place and all of that, that's all great. But what are you going to do when all of these kids from these outside and these bigger communities come in, and they will impact ours? They are. They are, and we see it. You know, so I'm all for the PowerPoint. I am. I don't think subleasing it would be a good ideal, just simply because it opens Pandora's box to my kid can't come, your kid's younger. You know, we need to focus our teenage kids. We need to get them off the streets. We need to get them involved. We need to get them in sync. And with that, their younger siblings will follow suit. But if we don't start there, it does us no good to start with the 5 and 6-year-olds at this point, because right now we have a town full of 14, 15, 16-year-olds that have nowhere to turn. And they're right. Their parents aren't involved. Their parents aren't home. And mom and dads are working more and more hours these days. So it leaves it to the community. You know, we used to meet our community when we had, you know, our 4th of July at the park, and I'm a big advocate for that because you got to see your neighbor, you got to interact, you got to meet new people that were moving to town. Pickwa's grown to a point where we don't really have a lot of those opportunities to meet who our neighbor is. So we've lost that theory of community on that level, but we have the ability to bring it back with the PowerPoint. We have the ability to get back involved and say, hey, this is my neighbor's kid, this is my neighbor's son, and look out for each other's children. And that's what we should be doing. We cannot build a city that's worth living in if the kids here are not stable to be around.
Thank you.
But that's all I got to say.
Thanks, Eva.
Hello, I'm Michelle Perry. I live at 745 South Downing Street, so I'm also a resident of Southview neighborhood and Jim's neighbor. I serve as the executive director of the Piqua Community Foundation, and as you heard earlier, Pitch Piqua is a project of the foundation that I'm very proud of. In our inaugural year, we had our 3 finalists, and Piqua Compassion Network took home the $50,000 grant award to make the Power Project happen. We had a packed house that night. Some of you were there. It was an incredible evening in March of this year, and that had taken months for our finalists to get prepared for that. So next week, we're actually going to be releasing the identities of our next round of Pitch Piqua finalists, so watch out for that. But then they work with us for about 6 months on project management skills, on storytelling skills, getting ready to tell that story. And one of the things we worked on is risk management and stakeholders and making that communication with your community. You know, we had a great session with Mr. Smeezing here, working on project management skills because he sees this every day in his work. We had a panel of 4 judges who you saw in the video that represented different sectors of our community. We also had a 5th judge, which is the collective voting of the community together. I'll be quick, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Any individual could vote with $10 or more. Those were pass-through donations made to the foundation that went to the organization whose idea that community member supported the most. So I'm happy to say on top of the $50,000 grant award, we also passed through $5,100 to Piqua Compassion Network for this project, and that represents 142 individual voters. I think that's pretty incredible.
Sure.
Those grant funds that were made through the foundation were made possible by the fund holders of the foundation. And our inaugural year, we had support from French Oil Mill Machinery Company Fund, the Richard Donnelly Personal Gifting Account, and the G. William Hartzell Charitable Fund, as well as unrestricted funds that are overseen by our board of directors. So as you can tell, this project is widely supported by foundation donors and by community members. And there's been a large investment made with the understanding that this project will take place at Moak Park Building. And I think it's an ideal space. They worked with the city as they developed their plan to make sure that they had all of their ducks in a row, and I hope you will honor that commitment of utilizing this space for the best use that it has. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
don't need to worry about the microphone. I talk loud enough. Jay Roman, 406 West High.
Long time.
Yes, it
Let's
has
see.
been. Mrs. Welker, do we know how long that building's been vacant for?
It's not vacant.
Well,
It's-
it's just not been used, basically.
Yeah.
Long time. It's safe to say, really long time. Okay, so anybody that had a shot or wanted to have a shot at that building has had ample time. It is irrelevant if anybody else wants to be in there at this point. They could have done it by now. We have people that are willing to come in here. I'm not too concerned about the why. They're building something really big right there. I think they got a lot of
Oh, yeah.
space. So they've got a great presentation. They're willing to help the youth. As Eva said, they need it bad. The number one thing shouldn't be who's in charge of it. The number one thing should be, are we helping the youth? So I think the absolute answer to this is a yes vote. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Anyone else? Okay.
Hi, Stacy Scott. My husband and I pastor True Vine Church here in Piqua, 531 West Ash Street. I have been on Piqua Compassion Network's board for the last 12 years, 13 years. I serve on the executive committee. I do case management once a day. For years, we have partnered with the Salvation Army and their summer feeding program, which if any of you have never done that, it's a great way to get out in your community and see how some of our kids are living. But I know what it's like when a mom calls and she doesn't have diapers. I know what it's like when a kid has to go to school with dirty clothes because maybe mom or dad isn't invested. Maybe they just don't have the money to wash clothes. I didn't grow up with a lot of money, but I always went to school with clean clothes. We say things like, oh, the kids today, the kids today. We already don't have a pool anymore. We get mad when we see graffiti. We get mad when we see skateboarders out and about. But when we have community members coming together to develop something for the kids, then how can we say that we're upset with what the kids are doing in our community if we're not providing any alternative venues for them, just so that somebody can hold a birthday party or have a meeting? I think it's a far better of our time, our resource, our young people. If all these kids grow up and they're like, I can't wait to get out of Piqua, who's going to be left in Piqua? To have two young people who went away to college, who came back, same thing with Shane Carter here, Lincoln Center. These kids came back into their community to make a difference, and now they're paying it forward. If we're not going to link arms with them and help support them, their innovation, their ideals, who's going to be left in Piqua? So I think that this is the best investment. This is an investment into young people's lives. I can remember going to school. I left school knowing how to write a check and balance a checkbook. Do we even teach kids those things anymore? Some kids don't even know how to eat healthy. They don't know how much water they're supposed to drink a day. They don't know how to wash clothes. Maybe they don't know how to play sports. They would love to play baseball, but nobody's ever taught them. This is something in our community that could just create waves of longevity through generations in bringing change. Not that every kid's going to come there, but to be open that every kid has the opportunity to be at a place like the Power Project. How could we not invest in that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the product, not the process.
Anyone else? Okay.
No one else?
Hearing none, I would like to entertain the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution.
R-105-22. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Thank you.
So, we passed this just now. Congratulations, Power Project. After you guys get up and running, can we have a town hall there? Come visit you, just to check it out, and do a tour.
We will be having very, very soon, an event for the whole community to come up as we break ground on these renovations.
We'll be there.
Thank you from the bottom of our
No problem.
Thank you.
No problem. We'll add to it.
All right, moving on to resolution number R-106-22.
A resolution approving the tax rates for the city as determined by the Miami County Budget Commission.
Good evening, commissioners and citizens. Every year about this time, we request this approval of the certified tax rates that are provided to us by Montgomery County. These certified rates require the approval of our commission and certification to Miami County before October 1st, 2022. Passage of this will allow the city to continue to receive the collection of property tax revenue from the county. These revenues are vitally important to the general fund and our day-to-day operations.
Any comments from commission? Any comments from our citizens? I move to adopt resolution number R-106-22.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution number R-107-22.
A resolution awarding a contract to Double J Construction, Inc. for the Lock 9 wall improvements.
Thank you. Members of the commission, this item is to allow for us to move forward with the installation of a portion of the Lock 9 Park improvements, namely a large retaining wall that is instrumental to accommodating the grade change between the planned park improvements and the rear of the private property that's currently being renovated to be known as Crooked Handle Brewing Company. As you'll recall, we had advertised the first phase of the project for bids this past summer, and unfortunately, contractors being busy and times being challenging, we received no bids. With that, presented us with an opportunity to continue with the public notice requirements for some additional funding sources that have been received. So now we'll be advertising the entire scope of the project, both halves, all the way to the river in October, and we'll get bids back later that month, 1st of November, thereabouts. And we'll have a contractor awarded, or a contract awarded, so that they can tee the project up and be ready to move forward first thing in the spring as soon as the weather permits. In the meantime, we bring this item before you because, as I mentioned previously, for the private property improvements to be completed, they need this retaining wall to be in place so that they can finish their work. So we have solicited proposals. Unfortunately, I only received one bid back, but we have a bidder who is available and ready to complete the work and get on it right away, which is good because timeliness is important here. So the item you have before you is for the $90,000 improvements in retaining wall, of which $81,878 is the quoted price. The remaining balance is a contingency. These funds were budgeted in the 2022 budget for the Lock 9 Park improvements.
So that expense, that was what was originally projected for about that cost of this?
Retaining wall.
Costs are up. It's higher than the original estimate for just the retaining wall work, but we do have the funding allocation to be able to complete it.
Did you say that we had the funding allocation to do the rest of the whole project? Is that what you were saying?
So where we sit today with that is we have secured funds. I'll just go through these real quick. There's $500,000 from the Land and Water Conservation Fund that we received. There's $150,000 from the state capital budget we received in the last budget cycle, $150,000 from the most recent state capital budget cycle, so $300,000 total from state capital, $81,631 in recreational trail program funds, $150,000 allocation from the Miami Conservancy District, $294,000 in private donations, I should say. And then the most recent piece, which is the part we're finishing the public notice on now, is the $649,100 from the CARES Act money that was made available to us. So with that, we're within striking distance of the total funding need for the project. So we're of the opinion that we need to bid it, see what the delta is, and then we'll be able to plan for that accordingly going into 2023.
Any other comments? Commissioners, citizens? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution R-107-22.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution adopted. Resolution number R-108-22.
A resolution authorizing an amendment to the zoning map to change the zoning designation of a .31 acre parcel on the corner of South Street and Commercial Street to I-1, from I-1 to R1.
Thank you. This is a vacant site that fronts South Street. It actually is referenced as a Grant Street location in the county auditor maps, but it's actually a South Street frontage. The item was presented to the Planning Commission on September 13th. Prior to the meeting, the meeting notice was advertised and notices were mailed to all the property owners within 200 feet. The Planning Commission considered the request. What the applicant is asking to do is essentially split the lot in half, which would produce a .31 acre lot on South Street to allow for them to develop that portion with a single-family residential structure. So a nice investment in the neighborhood and nice infill development of a housing product in that location. Planning Commission recommended approval of this request.
Have we had any contacts for partial use of that project? Is anybody entertaining any use of that piece of property?
The applicant's intent is to build a new home on that site.
Oh.
That's why they're making the request.
I'm sorry, you said that parcel is split in two? Is that?
It runs from Grant Street to South Street, and currently on the northern end, there's a large utility building, and they would split the lot, retain the piece towards South Street, and that's where they would build the home.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else have comment? Citizens, comment? All right. Entertain a motion for resolution R-108-22.
I'll make a motion for resolution number R-108-22.
And I would second that motion.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution is passed. Resolution number R-109-22.
A resolution authorizing an amendment to the zoning map to designate a plus or minus 663 acre tract along North County Road 25A and Farrington Road as I-2 heavy industrial.
As mentioned earlier, when there's a territory being proposed for annexation into the community, the Planning Commission has presented a request for a zoning designation to be assigned to the property upon the annexation being completed, and that is the item you have before you here this evening. At the September 13th Planning Commission meeting, an item was included to consider this request. Again, the meeting was advertised, mailing notices were sent to all the property owners within 200 feet and probably further. And then at the Planning Commission meeting, they considered the nature of the request, recognized that in the comprehensive plan, this area was identified for strategic growth opportunities, and in considering the attributes of the property, the fact that utilities are nearby and have sufficient capacity, for the development purposes of this area, be it for water, sewer, gas, electric, data. Also recognizing the 5-lane access from the area to the interstate interchange, which is less than a mile away. Recognizing that the land is relatively flat and well-drained. All of those things lead the Planning Commission to the conclusion that the property should be zoned I-2 heavy industrial, which is consistent with the zoning of the property immediately to the north. Planning Commission here again recommended approval of the I-2 zoning request.
All right, thank you. Any comments from commissioners?
So I just want to ask the question again. So this is just changing it in the zoning. If a quarry was proposed, that would come to us commission to vote on accordingly? Or would we not have that opportunity?
A quarry is a special use in the I-2 zoning district. What was presented to the Planning Commission at their last meeting, in addition to this item and the others I referenced, was the special use request contingent upon annexation and zoning approval. When they consider the special use, they look at the criteria to determine whether or not that use is going to have an adverse effect on the surrounding properties and come to a determination. If it is not, they approve that request to be allowed to pursue that special use. Once it's authorized, then they can present the zoning permit request to get the permits necessary, which means they have to provide the construction documents, all the plans that indicate that all the applicable zoning standards are being satisfied, as well as any other regulatory requirements. So permits from the state and all the different agencies that would touch a quarry would also have to be included. They also added the condition that they need to take into consideration the tolerances of all the machinery and equipment in the surrounding industries and businesses, and demonstrate that they can mitigate any concerns with regards to vibrations and or dust issues. The other item on the agenda was their preliminary plat request, which is the first step towards redefining a lot boundary. And in this case, it pertained to the boundaries or the proposed boundaries of where the quarry would be located, which is in the center of the block, if you will, removed from County Road 25A frontage, removed from the Farrington Road frontage, with just the drive access to Farrington Road, but otherwise with no frontage on Farrington Road. That preliminary plat then is what the Planning Commission reviews to determine if it's consistent what's being proposed with the designation or the zoning that would be in effect. Once they authorize that, then the applicant can come back and request a final plat or submit a final plat for approval. It first goes to the Planning Commission for the public hearing, and they make a recommendation to the City Commission, and the City Commission takes final action on the final plat request. Does that explain?
Any other comments from commission?
What implications would there be if we tabled this resolution for now and kept it zoned as is until looking to that at that point? Would that hold up that process?
The concern would be, and this is in all truthfulness, we have had significant interest in this property already. Bearing in mind, there's, with or without a quarry, there's substantial acreage here for development purposes. And without the entitlement, the zoning in place, you start to run into the site selectors turn and go the other way. If they don't have the zoning designation and know that they have a willing seller, party who will engage with them to allow for the development to take place, a community that will support their needs in terms of extension of utilities and all those things that are instrumental to economic development projects happening, then it really stymies the process and you miss out on opportunities.
Any other comments?
I think the, what's that phrase, measure 10 times, cut once? I think that applies here. I think tabling is the best idea. Obviously, a lot of people have got a lot of concerns about this, and as we go back to when it was just me in this room, we know that there's a lot of trust issues when it comes to citizens and government, and I think it would be good faith of you guys to say, not right now, if they're so skittish that saying, hey, we need to get the citizens' advice on this, and they run away, then they're in it for themselves anyway. But I think you guys could see from the turnout tonight, it's more important to the people who felt like they got kind of this slid under the table. And yes, there was announcements made, but and that is, people should have paid attention to that, obviously. I'm not saying that anybody is not held from that responsibility. But at the same time, now their attention is on it, and there's enough. I mean, you guys saw how riled up people were earlier over this.
Emphatic, yes.
And, I think every single concern that was brought up is legit.
Yeah.
I know if I was working behind that, because I saw the video that the one gentleman posted today on
I did
Facebook
too.
and how close it was to those dock doors. I work industry. I have primarily since the pandemic began and a little bit before that. And you have to deal with dust anyway. So compounded on top of that. And Atlantis, what they would have to deal with the calibrations of the machines, just too many variables. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying give it a little bit more time. That's what I would think. I think you
agree
hit the
with you.
nail on the head.
I hear you.
That's pretty much all I got to say about that. Thank you.
Say your name.
Rocky Bauer, Master,
I know you.
6050 Drake Road. So the one thing that just stood out to me, mailers going out to residences and businesses within 200 feet of the proposed site. Quarry has got like a mile, I don't want to call it blast radius, that's wrong, but there's a mile radius of impact area, which explains why I did not get a mailer on this topic. So I live right just inside a half mile from where this is going to happen, right? So no, I didn't get a notice that I didn't get to voice my opinion like some others who did get those notices last week. So on top of that, I don't know if there have been economic impact studies to what a couple of folks have raised. I don't know a manufacturer in his right mind. I've worked with manufacturers. I've sold the machinery and the software that runs the machinery in some of those places. They're all precision. I cannot fathom a manufacturing business owner who says, yeah, I'll go build my multi-million-dollar plant right next to a quarry. On top of that, folks like me who have asthma have also other concerns about silica dust and things get kicked in the air from that stuff. So it could be good, the industrial park, there's got to be a way to decouple these two pieces. That's my advice is find a way to decouple these two pieces, because my biggest fear, and everybody's here, I could not sit here and tell you too many times, if any, that a project like this got stopped dead in its tracks once it got those initial approvals because of, oh, the soil's not right or the minerals aren't there. I don't know of any right off the top of my head, but I implore you find a way to do that. If it's table it for 2 more weeks and this buyer goes away, they're not a good community partner. That's all I got to say.
Madam Mayor, just a point of clarification on the 200 feet, that comes straight out of the code. That's what the commission has adopted as the notification requirement, so that's where that number comes from.
Michael Sherry, 430 Fox Drive. Code is one thing, ethics is another thing. I think we'd agree on that. One question I have, and I don't know the answer to this. A lot of questions I ask, I know the answer to. I don't know the answer to this question, so someone in here maybe does. Why was this annexation, the old business, tabled for several weeks, months? Why was that originally tabled?
It goes back to what I mentioned previously. The planning commission needed the opportunity to be able to make a zoning recommendation for the property so that you had a zoning designation to assign when it was annexed.
I personally find it unique that the annexation was postponed until not just the zoning, but the special use of that land was approved last week. So as soon as that was approved, we're here a week later. I find that really interesting. Chris can talk for 5 minutes and tell you that, well, I don't know exactly what we get if you approve the I-2 zoning, if this approves the mine or not, but real quick answer is yes, it does. In the resolution that was printed on the website, part of the background here, it says approximately 201 acres of the total land is planned to be developed into a mineral quarry. This is in the background on the resolution we're voting for right now. As shown in Exhibit A, a special use contingent upon the city's commission's approval of the I-2 zoning, which is what you guys are doing right now. So unless I'm wrong, with you voting to approve the I-2 zoning right now, that in effect also approves the special use permit to go into action.
Is that accurate?
I don't think
That's
you're,
what I'm trying to
Frank,
clarify.
is he correct?
The planning commission has approved a special use. Now, Mr. Schmeezing has stated to you that there are other processes involved in that after the fact. So the answer to your question, is a quarry going to be there or not, depends on a lot of contingencies, including things that have to happen through Pickwa Materials.
But are we in fact, by approving these resolution, approving that special use?
The special use permit has been approved.
It's already been approved, yeah.
Thank you.
Now, his argument is whether, one of his arguments is whether or not they should have done that after it was zoned or not,
Sure.
which is something he can raise. But the special use permit, well, I'm not gonna lie to people, was approved by the Pickwa, Planning Commission.
That would go in effect contingent of this rezoning to industrial.
What's that?
And that special use.
But you can't get the special use without the industrial designation. That's correct.
Anybody else?
John McCoy, 5515 North Washington Road. Our farm butts right up to the backside of this, literally. We need a designation. Look, I'm asking you guys, if this property is so valuable and so many people want it, why do we have to get in bed with the devil to dig a hole? They're not going to put anything else there. Someone else will come along. If you don't give them what they want, they will go away. They will sell that land. Someone else will invest in it eventually. If it is so valuable, that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Stand in line.
I just have a question. So this is not the first set of land Pickwa Materials has that we were under the impression and understanding would be developed. That was not developed. So my thing is, and this is back to what Jay said, the community not trusting the government. Like the gentleman just got, there was a special, and I'm not saying that's a snake move or a dirty move, it's just politics and it is what it is. But the reality becomes the industrial companies that want to come there, they do have to worry about calibration, they do have to worry about vibration. So who's to say that I'm promised industrial builds, but then a big hole's dug and now I can't take that cost to my company? That's pretty much what I believe happened with the first set of 200 plus acres that Pickwa Material promised they would develop, that still yet, quite a few years later, haven't been. So that is my concern. I think that it would be a good move for the council to table it, give the people some time to think about it. And if the investors don't want to wait, they don't want to invest, we have plenty of other land in this community they could invest in. We have empty buildings, we have empty already built industrial places. We have a lot here to offer. So it doesn't have to be that specific land. But because of the mistrust between Pickwa Materials already with the land prior, because of the special permits, the citizens just aren't willing to take that risk. I mean, you're talking about something that could potentially put in danger the health of them, their grandchildren, their children. This could be a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, Tom Homan, 1803 Nicklin Avenue. Okay, so one of the benefits that was mentioned was increased tax revenue from this property. Again, whether the special consideration is passed or not, the changing of it to I-2 designation for zoning, again, one of the benefits mentioned was increased tax revenue. A lot of the concerns that were brought up by the public here that we heard tonight were fear of many business owners of losing the ability to conduct their business entirely in the city. There was several homeowners concerned about their homes not being built to withstand seismic activity that was not anticipated under the original construction of their homes. And there's a lot of health concerns for families and residents in the area. And a lot of those fears that were brought up tonight appear to have gone unanswered. So my question to you is simple. Is there any way that any of you can explain to these people, to the citizens of this community, how increased tax revenue for the city justifies the risk and fear that they have for their homes, their livelihoods, and their families? All right, I'll take your silence as the answer unless...
You didn't even give us a chance to answer it. Thank you very much.
I'm here.
Yeah,
think I
I'm
got-
giving you 5 minutes. I mean, we can have the property. Do we have to have the quarry? All right?
That's
There
the
you go.
question.
It is.
That's the question.
It is.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Here we go.
Julia Perkins, 811 McKinley Avenue. I've heard a lot of concern about annexating to industrial use. Can it be annexed into the city of Piqua without the contingency of a quarry, without it being industrial? And still, the city can grab hold of the properties. Why are we pushing for it to be industrial? Is it for the quarry? Is that why?
I would say no. I would say because, again, that's location on 575 is ideal for some of that in industry, something that we've looked
But
at.
I've also heard contingent upon other aspects. Why couldn't it be just annexed for general use or something? That way, the quarry would be out of the question, which is what all of us want. The city wants the property, we don't want a quarry. If it's annexed industrial, I've heard it's going to be a quarry, regardless. Thanks.
Thank you. Josh?
Joshua Blackshire, 1301 Spruce Street in Troy. This time speaking on behalf of myself.
Okay.
So your main concerns have been basically what our concerns is that none of us are opposed to the annexation. We just oppose the quarry. And it actually surprises me in the sense too, is that a quarry is not a popular item by any means. And they keep talking about how we've got some big interested parties involved, but what kind of parties do we really have involved that their best option is to claim that they're gonna put a quarry there instead of whatever this other business is? And that kind of scares me, are these guys dealing with, biohazards or what? I don't know. But if I understand this correctly, so this was on the agenda as two issues, correct? The annexation, and now when that's already been covered, and now we're on the I-2 designation. So why not vote the I-2 designation down and come? So you've got the land secured essentially. You get the I-2 designation, you vote it down, and you tell these guys to come back. When they've got this big buyer, you tell them come back, submit a plan, and you will zone it parcel at a time. And I'm going to tell you, based on my experience, I've worked for the Sherry family for 17 years. I've run the industrial park for probably 15 of those years. We've never had anybody come to us. I used to have signs sitting out in the industrial park. I had 5 signs, 6 signs, and they all said build to suit. And they had my phone number and they had my email address. Not once did I ever get a phone call, even inquiring about the 40-acre lot that we've got sitting right there where the water tower is sitting now. That's all open land, prime for development. All we gotta do is just put the road back. And Mike and Jim Sherry have already started that process. It just needs extended. So, in my opinion, I get tabling this would be, it pushes the ball a little bit, and then we'll be back here at the next meeting where it's on the table. or vote it down. And, you know, we've got our company, you know, Sherry Development, we've got the land there to develop it. If Mr. Sherry doesn't want to do it, Jim and Mike have started developing it. And one of us will get buildings in here. We can bring business into Piqua. You just got to give us the opportunity. Thank you.
Good evening.
My name is Brad Dowdican. I'm with Woodard Development, 205 East First Street, Dayton, Ohio. We are working with Piqua Materials on the industrial piece of the property. So I get the unenviable position after what was just presented in front of me to make a few counterpoints, which I think are valid and worth considering by the council. So I'd like to just take an opportunity. Again, our interest here is in the industrial property adjacent. So the city of Piqua has a number of things going for it. Market conditions being a big one right now. Your labor force is got sort of impeccable ratings as labor becomes a challenge in our economic times right now. If you look up and down the 75 corridor, you see development occurring, especially larger boxes, right? And the small ones that support that as well, right? Sydney's got large deals on the table. You can work your way down the corridor all the way into Tennessee, right? Just in terms of the Midwest. So the Midwest, Columbus, Cincinnati, et cetera, they've all become a target for it. There's also an uptick from the development side for site seeker requests, which is basically a national search attention that's given. A lot of those are for multinational or national companies. Typically, they are either in advanced manufacturing or heavy industrial practices. They are looking for typically larger roofs, right? And what comes with that is larger contiguous acreage. So in speaking to some of the benefits of this site, relative even to perhaps some of the inventory that exists within Piqua, I think what you've got here that is a unique element is you've got ready access to I-75. You've got large contiguous acreage, meaning you can put this together in multi-hundred acre pieces if you want to there as well. Big piece of this is you. It's the city. It's your investments that you've made into your municipal infrastructure, your water treatment plant, your wastewater treatment plant, the water towers, right? It makes the decision-making process, it satisfies some of the economic pro forma metrics associated with development much easier when you're not trying to drag utilities, an extended distance or try to service them on site. You're on the I-75 corridor. You've seen the building that's going on around the Dayton Airport, and then obviously areas and regions north of there. There's plenty of positives. And frankly, your labor force, back to the initial one, is a huge benefit, right? Aligning with the City of Piqua strategic planning, jobs has been a focus of this community for years now, right? Your plan goes back over a decade, but in that, identified this corridor as a location to where you can identify jobs. Jobs are, I think, integral to any community, and then the housing to support that. These kind of anchor investments become, an enabler to that end. Chris spoke to some of the other economic benefits, and we can rattle off numbers and square footages and whatnot. But I think it's important from a contextual perspective to understand the investment that's already been made in terms of planning, right? We've gone through a site master planning process, independent of the quarry, in terms of how we might lay out the roofs and the parking, deal with, stormwater management, et cetera. We've done highest and best use studies for the area. We've looked at things like easements and title work, et cetera. We basically checked all the diligence boxes that you need to check out of the gate in order to present this to state and national brokerage houses, independent companies, and these site seekers as well. And the response has been positive. Chris can speak to it, but there's, I'll just say, large entities that have expressed interest in taking down large chunks of this already. And that's where some of the imperative comes for achieving the I-2 zoning that we're looking for now, is we'd like to have the ability to move forward with that as we talk about it. So,
do we have to do that with a quarry, though?
Yeah. I have to be careful about that.
Don't want to. That's what I'm saying.
You've got a land ownership issue, right? You've got a prime site.
Yep.
Let me agree with you for a step, just so far as to say the concerns are relevant to the industrial community who would move in here just as much as they are to those being brought up today.
It's true.
And they need to be remedied, and that's something that certainly our organization and others are taking a strong look at. And there has been work on that, right? And there have been questions raised appropriately. We try to get ahead of those questions and have answers to them, and we appreciate the appropriate forums to answer and respond to those. Those have been part and parcel of the early discussions as have already been had on this site. So they're important, right? We have hospitals nearby, right? We have roadways, there's infrastructure, right? There's all these questions, and that's what development is, right? And it becomes a conversation. And we find what is the best use for the community through that, and we navigate forward. So, to your, I think as a developer, many of our questions have been satisfied to a strong extent, right? And I think that, that information has been made in the public record already and is available if you inquire of your city staff, right, as well, especially if this council were to inquire on that. That information is available to you. And so what I would just ask you to contemplate, any development is going to have a conversation associated with how we proceed that forward in the best interest of the community. And in this case, you've got the opportunity for over 4 million square feet under roof. There's a significant amount of job that can come with that. There's risk associated with that, but I think the mature way to handle that is to just address those risks and allow things like the regulatory structures that already exist, right? From a mining perspective, I'm not an expert in mining, but I know that one of the conclusions that came out of the last meeting with planning was that there is a regulatory authority, in fact, many regulatory authorities that oversee elements that were raised as objections to the mine, right? Principally the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, right? And they do have jurisdiction over that. Not to mention your own zoning and planning, right? Chris talked about platting, that's to come. So there are a variety of steps to be taken to move this forward. The shame would be to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And what I'd ask it is just to consider, from our perspective, the immeasurable opportunity that this presents to the community and work together to find a path forward. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Dave Fishbeck. Look, once it's a hole, it's a hole. So they come in, they take everything out, no business will ever go in there again because now it's a giant hole, right? That guy represents a business trying to make money, not trying to make Piqua beautiful and awesome, right? These guys' jobs are to represent the city, and they're doing what they think is best for the city. You represent us.
Yep. We're listening.
And us say, no, no, no.
Chuck Dye, 1011 Nicklin Avenue. You're wanting to bring industry in. Bruns Group has an industrial park just a mile south where you want to go. They got 10 lots. They got a big sign. They've made a big apron, 25-8. What's moved in there in 3 years? Nothing. What thinks is going to come to Piqua?
Tyler Fonzie, 1803 Nicklin. So I'm 24 years old. I grew up in Maryland for 23 years of my life, and I moved here in October. So in less than a year, I somehow got involved into local politics somehow here. But it's because genuinely I enjoy where I live now. So where I used to grow up, it was 500 miles away exactly, 8 hours and 10 minutes, given the traffic. Through 4 states to travel to Ohio. I traveled here from when I was about 19 until 23 when I moved here. And as you travel, you see a lot of sights. The two that stand out are beautiful nature and industrial parks, specifically in PA and West Virginia. And everything I've noticed throughout every single season, throughout 2 different cars that I drove through here, and throughout college to me graduating, every single one of those parks never had anyone working. It was just, no one was in there. And it was quarries, and it was everything related to rocks. It just created dust, and everything around there, no one was around. There was just empty buildings. No one wants to live there, for sale signs, decrepit. And one of the best parts about Piqua is just how you drive 10 minutes in any direction. It's rural, beautiful land, whether it's farmland or just regular nature. You can most certainly annex this land and purchase it just to have it as nature and say it's Piqua and add it to the beautiful list of land that you have around here. But a quarry, that's a hole that adds dust, and all those roads, they will not be black anymore. They will be white, gray, or whatever god-awful off-color it may be. It needs to stay beautiful land. If you annex it, that's great. Keep it beautiful land. I'm sure there's people that will take care of it for free, as long as it's not a quarry like the other states that I drove through until I decided to move here and make this my permanent residence and invest in this community.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you for coming.
There's somebody else.
Oh, stop.
My name is Steve Elliott. I live at 1218 Walker Street. I don't live close to where this proposed gravel pit's going to be, but I do drive from time to time from Pickwood to Troy on Pickwood-Troy Road, past the gravel pit that's currently there. They repaved that recently. This gentleman was talking about how the road is all dusty. The road is dusty. It's got rocks on it all the time. It's an eyesore. You've heard from a number of reputable businessmen, people that live in the area. Nobody wants it. Farmers don't want it. They haven't wanted it for years. They've had signs up out there for, I know, at least 2 years, probably longer, about not putting a gravel pit in out there. It just, you know, I'm all for annexing it. Just don't annex it for a gravel pit. Nobody wants a gravel pit. And another thing, don't dare wash your car and drive down Pickwood-Troy Road because
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Well, that was funny.
Dennis Garrison, Pickwa Materials, 1750 Statler Road, Pickwa. I would like to thank the commission this evening for its consideration of the resolutions. And I'm not up here to speak about all the details that took place at the special, with regard to the special use permit, but I would like to clarify just a couple points. The point was made tonight that when Pickwa Materials bought the Wyndham Industrial Park, that there was a planned development there. When Pickwa Materials bought the Wyndham Industrial Park, that was already in the city. It was zoned I-2, and we went through the special use permit process to allow for mining on the property. And through that process, we acquired a permit from the Department of Natural Resources and went through all the regulatory agencies to mine the property. The intent was always to mine the acreage that we bought in the Wyndham Industrial Park. And mining activity has been going on at that site since the early 1900s. We currently mine there every day, obviously. There's activity there every day. There's truck traffic on the roads. There is some dust. I'm not going to deny that. There's issues around any industrial site. But the thing I would point out to the commission is we've received 0 complaints from our neighbors in the Wyndham Industrial Park. All of the issues that have been brought up tonight can be mitigated. There's a process to do that, but there's a regulatory process for it. And we have to go through that process before a permit to mine will ever be issued. So I would like to ask the commission to take that into consideration tonight because the industrial zoning for the property's got 2 aspects to it. The development on the industrial side, and then the special use permit is an application that's only applicable in an I-2 zoning. So that's what's in front of you tonight. It's not necessarily the approval of a special use permit, which it isn't. It's the I-2 zoning, which allows the rest of the projects to move forward. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is that it?
Oh, by the way, we're not going to take our ball and go home either.
So we have resolution number R-109-22.
So I'd like to make a recommendation to table at this time, only for the fact I don't have a problem with zoning as heavy industrial, but I still want to make some clarifications in regards to the special use permit. I really appreciate the gentleman speaking from the developer standpoint. I agree with you that there's a lot of check boxes, the mitigations, what can you do? I want to look at a lot of that detail.
Commissioner, may I make a suggestion? You can treat a resolution as similarly as an ordinance, and you can make this a first read and then just bring it on as a second read at the next meeting if you wish.
I was gonna say, what's the difference there? With the,
Guys,
with it being tabled, we can just pull it out of it being tabled.
Yeah,
like
you
we
can
did.
pull it
Yeah,
out
I see
too
that
also.
being a-
I was just making a suggestion.
I
so.
appreciate that.
I'll second the table. Table the,
Okay, we've had it seconded, so do you want to call the roll?
Commissioner Grissom,
Aye.
Commissioner Lee,
aye.
Mayor Pearson,
Nay.
Commissioner Vetter.
Aye. Resolution's
All
tabled.
right. Resolution number R-110-22.
How's this one play?
A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an economic development agreement pertaining, pertaining to the 663.64 acre Pickle Materials Homan Farms Shower J3 Development Annexation Territory.
So will this
Commission,
one have to be tabled as well then,
I
or?
would presume in light of the
Okay.
last action, you would prefer to table this one as well.
Sure.
I'll make,
So,
I'll make a motion to table Resolution R-10-22.
Second.
all right, it's been moved and seconded to be tabled. Do you want to call the roll, please?
Commissioner Grissom,
Aye.
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Mayor Pearson,
Nay.
Commissioner Vetter,
Aye.
Resolution number R-111-22.
a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a land use permit with Miami Conservancy District for the Lock 9 Park improvements.
As mentioned previously, we are fast approaching the opportunity to move forward with Lock 9 Park improvements. This item would simply allow us to put in place the land use permit with Miami Conservancy District that's necessary for the proposed improvements that would occupy that portion of the properties that are controlled or owned by MCD. This is not unlike what we've had in the past with the previous park improvements and/or in other situations such as the bike trail where they occupy MCD property. So we would ask for commission's approval to be able to execute the land use permit so that we can satisfy this requirement prior to moving forward with the project.
Are there any commission comments? Are there any citizens' comments? Okay. I
I'll make a
move-
motion. I'll make a motion to approve, resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution carried. We move into public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the city commission regarding agenda items, issues, or to provide information. Comments are requested to be limited to 5 minutes, and specific questions should be addressed to the city manager's office.
Now for the reason I came. So I've talked to Mr. Oberdorfer about this a couple times, but it's not his job to handle this, so I'm kind of stepping it up to you guys before I go to the next step, which I don't want to do. The trash situation in this city is out of control. Once again, this is 10 times this year my trash has not been picked up. 10. And last time I actually did email Mr. Oberdorfer, and it was taken care of for a couple weeks, and now it's not picked up again. And I don't know what else to do except stick my trash cans in the middle of the road. You know, I've been on my own for about 16 years now, And only until these new trash cans came in have I ever had an issue with my trash being picked up. And this is very simplistic stuff, and not something I should be taking time out of my day to be this upset about.
10 times.
10 times, yeah, so far this year. And I know, I was glad she was here. But in general, like, I don't understand where the hangup is being, I guess where the chain is getting messed up in this. This is a very simple thing, you know.
Have you
and
called each time that it's not been picked up?
I have either contacted him. I did try to contact Ms. Welger before, and I don't know if I got a call back, but I didn't get an email.
I'd be High Street because I had the same issue.
Right,
Remember,
I didn't want to
talked.
dime you out. I know
We
that you
talked
have
a
had the
couple
same
times.
issues before. I know people that live in town have had the same issue. This is not a singular thing to me at all. But I don't know what the solution is. But if the issue is because they can't reach it with the arm, that's not my problem, because I pay for that service and it's not being met. And the last time I checked, services that are being paid for and aren't being, carried out, I don't know what the legal status of it is, but I'm pretty sure it's not good. So if I'm not going to receive a refund for the money that I give to the city, and I'm not trying to say you guys in general, I know you're not in charge of trash, but if the money that I'm putting into that, I'm not getting my service, then maybe the service needs to go to somebody else like Rumpke or whoever it might be that can handle this. I've got 2 full trash cans right now, and I've got trash in my house, and I'm like stuffing down my trash cans because I can't put it in because people are just blatantly not picking it up. And again, it's not me. There's other big people I don't want to dime out that I've talked to that have had the same problem, and this is a very simplistic thing for cities to do. So that is my main concern. And also, I just wanted to say, as much as I don't know, Mr. Vetter, is that your last name I said? Yes. This is the first time we've met. I used to do the Watch Piqua Facebook page, but I stopped doing it because I feel like the city's in a, I know there's a lot of upset people here tonight. But when I started doing Watch Piqua as opposed to now, I see a very different group of people in charge. Obviously, you weren't there. But I mean, in general, as far as like attitudes, I'm seeing a lot of good things come in here. I appreciate the way you guys listen to everyone tonight.
Sure.
And as much as I've criticized you, I think it's important to point that out. I hope that people that have came here tonight can at least see the effort being made on both ends. Now that a certain someone that used to sit on that side of the room is gone, you're starting to see more and more things come in. I know. Yeah, I know. I'm starting to see more and more things come in. I'm super excited about the Hardee's that's coming in. If I can just say that right now, you can ask my wife who's sitting right here. Every day we go past that, I'm like, is it open yet?
Same here.
I'm super excited for that. The Well Now facility that's moved in, I've actually had to use once since it's been there. It's an incredible facility, great people. I know a lot of people wanted to be a gas station there for some reason, but still, it's besides the point. I appreciate the effort that's being made because that's all I wanted in general. Sure. So I hope with that same, and Mr. Odorf is doing a great job. He's doing an amazing job as city manager. Every time I've gotten a hold of him, he has been on top of it. He's invited me out for meetings out of nowhere just because, to see how things are going. And I'm excited to be here. I've always wanted Piqua to be my home, but I also want my trash picked up. But
Amy, is there anything we can do to help him?
Yes, I don't want to sit here and make excuses because that's what anything I would say to that would sound like. I'm fully aware that we've had multiple issues in the department. I don't know specifically about Mr. Romans, but I will look into that. And I know we've had some issues. I could say staffing, and we are lacking some technology that we desperately need. Mr. Oberdorfer and I have had extensive conversations regarding those issues. And what I will say is we are aware of them. We are working to make the process better.
Thank you. Come on up.
Again. I thought I was done until he went.
I'm sorry, Rashi. Go right ahead, sir.
Just real quickly, first to echo, thank you for listening to everybody tonight.
We
Really
listen.
appreciate it.
We will.
But I live just outside of the city limit sign, and maybe that trash problem is carrying out of town because this morning my elderly neighbor was out scooting entire garbage bags off the road. We had at least 7 dumped. It's gotten increasingly worse every week, so I don't know. I can't connect the two and tell you I have empirical evidence, but I'm just saying maybe the trash problem in town is starting to carry to the county roads, and they're literally just dropping them right in the middle of the road. That's out on Drake, just,
Who picks up your trash normally?
What's that?
Who picks up your trash normally?
I'm a Rumpke customer.
Yeah, so Rumpke is the responsible
Yep.
organization.
So there was just at least 6 or 7 garbage bags littered along Drake Road just as you go out of town.
Oh, I know.
So, thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, he did that.
Any other comments?
Any other comments?
Tom Homan, 1803 Nicklin Avenue. I would also like to extend thanks to you all for voting to table the measure regarding the zoning issue with the newly annexed land. It's nice that you guys heard us and had that consideration, and I would ask that over the next few weeks, while that is tabled and you can continue to consider it without all of these lovely people in the room, that you would consider voting no on that, and not just leave it on the table next time as sort of Damocles over the city, or as it feels to the citizens around here, but to vote to untable it and then vote to no and to cancel that completely. Thank you.
Ready to vote no. Tonight.
One last thing. Thank you, Commissioners, for this evening. You did a great job. We need to talk maybe a little bit about stewards of the community. And Piqua Minerals, they don't even belong to our Chamber of Commerce. I doubt if they, I'm just speaking that the YMCA we're building, that many people in this room donated a lot of money to build this beautiful YMCA. Are they involved in our community? They absolutely are not. They're out of Cincinnati, Sharonville, the owner's out of Washington Courthouse. They got quarries all over the place. And I don't see them as stewards of our community. They don't care about us, but they care about our rock that's out there. And that's a valuable asset for their portfolio. Whether they mine that in 100 years from now. We went to a mine in Logan County, the Sherrys, myself and Paul Sherry, we watched the blast over there, and that mine is only 100 acres, and he has another plot with another 100 acres behind it. His father started mining that land in 1956. He's down about, what did you say, was it 70 feet now. He's got 450 to the bottom where the limestone is still there. That's a big dig. He said that quarry, just with the 100 acres, will be there for the next 100 years being mined. And then 3 generations later, they'll start the other 100. That's how deep that mine is. And he's a very good steward to that community, the Indian Lake area. It's Duff concrete up there.
But not here. But not here. Is
No.
what you're saying.
No. Scott Duff owns that quarry in Huntsville,
Okay.
Indian Lake area. He also owns the quarry, it's Ohio Concrete, right in front of the Honda plant
there.
in Marysville. And they just put up a plant in Plain City. And he is a true steward he's literally pumping 1.5 million gallons of quarry water, which is clear water, into the Little Miami River, which ends up in Indian Lake, which ends up coming down to our Miami River. Hopefully it will help fill it up a little bit more until we get that problem solved. But I'm saying there's a true steward to the community.
I see what you're saying. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate
Thank
you.
We don't know yet, though, right?
Hello.
Well, I'm Mark Mullen, and 1218 Nicklin Avenue. And we had a beautiful meeting last week with the mayor and Chris, and the biggest thing they had going was that nobody participates in things. And like I said, I was at the last meeting, there was 4? So, will you show of hands the people that's here for the Nicollet Avenue? So there's my starting contingent. Yeah, like I said, hopefully these two filled the rest of you guys in on what's going on.
That and Facebook, yeah.
Yeah, I'll bet. I don't look at computers. So I just want to let you know that you will be seeing our faces. And hopefully we'll get a notice from Mr. Sneezing over here when that comes to pass, right?
And will come from the development department once we receive something and there's a meeting.
Well, isn't that your job title? Development?
That's right. It'll come from my office.
All right,
when
good
there's
man.
something to notify you of.
So have you got any questions?
No, I was going to speak to some of it during mine, but I'll go ahead. So it was a wonderful meeting. Excited to see everybody show up, especially today. Like I said, the multiple things going on. But following up that meeting, a lot of what I heard was people wanted answers. They wanted kind of an understanding of what was out there. It sounded like a lot of the communication was back from February on what the original plans and such were. So Mr. Smeezing did set up a meeting for us on Friday, meeting with the developer as well as mayor. Right now, we're putting together some information so that I can distribute it to you, so that at least we're all on the same page of what the questions that were asked during that meeting, and try to get you guys some answers so that we can, discuss that moving forward.
Well, just coming up with some general information instead of
exactly.
us trying to figure out what's going on and not getting anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of my next step in that process. Like I said, it was an amazing meeting. It was great to see a lot of the people in that neighborhood. It's where I grew up. It's where I live.
When's the next school board meeting?
Next school board,
When you,
oh, you left.
will you guys be at that as well?
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, Thursday night, 6 p.m. this week.
You guys will be at that as well, right?
Most likely.
I hope so.
We've been to the last two and it
Keep
hadn't
going.
really got one way or the other.
I know.
And so a lot of that information should be getting put together this week so that I can try to give it out. The hardest thing for me is how to distribute that. I know I got a lot of good people that I was able to meet, not a lot of contacts. So I'm going to try to it sound like word of mouth kind of worked well in that situation, but trying to display information. We did implement the new city website, which looks phenomenal. So I'm really going to work to try to get some of that information out to you guys here shortly, so then we can discuss it further. There was a lot of questions at that last meeting, and that's
I
why I want
hope
to
I
get
made
answered.
you pleasant that we had people show up for
Oh,
it.
I love it. I think it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Like I
We
said,
love the support.
I love the representation, and I mean, that's what the community is about. We're trying to get that together.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, no questions. I'm game.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
My name's Ian Hubbard. I live at 1106 Walker, and I also have concerns about this project. Last week, the meeting was good. You brought a paper with you that said, that was from the development department, with a number on it for the number of houses. 48 on one city block in that neighborhood. That's an anomaly. That's at least 3 times as many as what should go there.
Too many.
That is too many. There's a school a block away. I drive to the gym 4 days a week, right when they let out. There's cars lining that area. Put another 100 or so on one block away from that school. You're asking for problems. It's already kind of dangerous. School people do a great job of getting the kids in and out of there, but 1 block away, like where I live, kids are darting in and out of traffic and stuff. You just can't tell what kids are always going to do. That, people always have concerns about their home value too. There's a lot of old homes there. Putting brand new homes right in the middle of a neighborhood with homes that are already 100 years old, 120 years old, along with people that have been there putting money into their home for 20, 30, 40 years. I have huge concerns about that, big time concerns. And you, Mr. Lee, you were a cop in this city for how long?
20 plus years.
Where's your crime? High-density neighborhoods. You're going to put a high-density area of homes in the middle of a R1 residential neighborhood.
Who's going to do that?
That's an anomaly. That's what I got, 48 homes right
No,
in the
but
middle
who's
of our
doing
neighborhood.
that? We're not doing that yet.
I know. It's coming from the city. It's coming from that development department.
So I don't want to cut you off, but that's just some of the information I want to get out, because I can tell you it's not 48. I want to try to give more description of what their
Okay.
latest and greatest is.
But I'm telling you, this is all word of mouth, and
Yeah,
no one has
absolutely.
been very transparent about
And
it.
that's what I'm trying to be. I want to be
Nobody's
as
been
transparent as possible.
transparent.
So I'll have
And
some
that's what we're
information.
trying to get at.
Absolutely.
I
And that's
got-
what I heard a lot from that meeting.
I
as
got
well.
40 people mad. Okay? And it's gonna be a lot more than that. I don't care if we gotta get a petition signed. I don't care what we gotta do. That ain't going in our neighborhood. Not that number. That's insane. That doesn't match our neighborhood, and it's not needed. I don't care how big of a housing problem we have. That is not needed, not that number. Too many problems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tyler Fonzie, 1803 Nicklin. So at one point during the meeting that I went to last week with Chris and the mayor there, it was brought up that those 48 homes, whether that number has dropped or not, were to be marketed at young professionals. And I would like to personally say, as a 24-year-old young professional, I would never, ever move into any of those homes for the price I was listed at around $200,000. If it was dropped to what was listed also at $100,000 during that meeting, I would never purchase to live in a home that close. If it was any of the homes adjacent to it, sign me up. But no, not at all. But thank you for the offer. But
Thanks, Mr. Fonzie.
Here comes Steve, here comes somebody else.
Jim Verhoets, 1222 Nicklin. I'd like to thank Chris, Cindy. You were kind of contacted at the last minute when we had one of our meetings. I think you got the input from a lot of great people. I've never met half of these people till this situation came around. What a great group of people. I'm one of the older ones. We've got all the young people that are interested in this city. The young man that spoke, he moved here. He's been here, I don't know how long, but he loves it. Yeah, how long?
less than a year.
Less than a year. How great. I mean, I watch these meetings too. I've never seen the input from citizens like I've seen tonight. Mr. Reardon and Mr. Sherry, we're behind you. These people are the people that made this city great. They employ our citizens. Moreover, they support our community, our kids, our schools. That's why we're so into where we live. We love the Nicklin Avenue area. We want to keep it nice. We want other people to come into it, which you would be amazed how many people utilize that area there. We know it's probably going to be developed, but we want it developed specifically the way it was laid out, 15 properties, whatever. We don't want 50, we don't want 40, we don't want 30. We want it the way it was laid out to fit where we live. If you drive down there during the holidays with our boulevards and everything, it's beautiful. You don't see much of that in Piqua that just offers that type of setting. And we want to keep it that way. We appreciate your time. We hope you think about this, just like with the other issues. You guys have got a lot on your plate, a lot.
We do.
I don't envy you at all. And as far as the planning committee and stuff, please come to our next meeting, Chris. And maybe you can put some input, maybe bring the developers back, and maybe we can figure something out that's going to work for all of us, especially our citizens. I know everybody wants to go home. I'm going to shut up.
Good, we're good.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. And to address what you're saying, Nicklin Avenue is the place there's a place in Columbus that my son lives in Grandview Heights, that looks like Nicklin Avenue. And I love where he lives at because it reminds me of home. And I couldn't see that development as it was proposed where he's at, so I shouldn't see it here. So. we'll see what's offered. We'll see what's offered. Come on.
And before this gentleman speaks, I do want to just advocate that, I'll try to get as much communication as I can when the proper meetings are, so everybody knows the dates and times. I know the last one was really successful. There was a lot of people that showed, but it sounded like it was a lot of word of mouth. I'll try to structure that a little bit, so when we do have the zoning meetings and such, that, there can be the true representation.
And can we get that information on the website, Mr. Oberdorfer?
Yes.
There we go. Please go to our new website and go to the alerts as well. Go ahead, sir.
Steve Elliott, 1218 Walker Street. I'm in the area of the
You are.
proposed Nicklin Avenue, Nicklin School, Wilder School redevelopment. We've kind of been led around on this whole thing. We've been told one thing, it's another. And we figure out that that's not true either. The neighborhood just doesn't know what's going on. First of all, you're talking, it's not going to be 48. I don't care how many are there. Just remember that however many homes you put in there, if whoever moves in there is going to have 2 cars. So if you've got 48 homes, that's 96 new cars in that neighborhood, with the Piqua Intermediate School 2 blocks down the street. We've already got people that drive like they stole their cars driving down Nicklin Avenue, Walker Street, Robinson Avenue. They don't seem to realize that the traffic limit, the speed limit, is 25 miles an hour. They wouldn't even think of driving 25 miles an hour down through those streets. They're just, it's out of hand. I wish the police would patrol it more than they do.
I've heard they have been patrolling it quite a bit here lately, because I've seen lots of complaints about Park Avenue being patrolled.
Well-
And people not realizing that it is 25, not 35.
Yeah.
It's been that way for a while now.
It's, yeah, and it's even more so in our neighborhood for some reason. It's just, it's a nice neighborhood.
It is.
Chris, you know that. You live in our neighborhood.
It's home, I'm telling you.
And, we don't want that many homes on that lot.
I understand.
I don't even want 15, to be honest with you. But,
It might
48,
increase
no
your own
way.
value, but-
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh.
Kind of short, but my name is Sharon Winrick.
Can you
and
talk a little closer to the mic, please?
You can move the mic if you like.
Yeah, move it down some closer to you.
There we
There you
go.
go.
Well, I get kind of nervous talking
You're
in
all
front of
right.
people. So.
We won't look at you. How's that?
Thank you for letting me come front.
Anytime.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Sharon Winrick. I live at 520 Manuel Avenue in Piqua. I've lived in Piqua all my life. My parents were here, my grandparents were here, my siblings are here. Actually, if you know very much about Piqua, I grew up in Shawnee in the Hilliard House, which is actually the oldest house between Cincinnati and the Great Lakes, not built of logs. It's a 19-room house. My parents took very good care of it. It's hard for me to drive by it now because of the condition that it is in. And it's very, very hard. But I'm not here to talk about their house. I'm here, this is my first meeting I've ever been to. I'm usually the one behind the scenes supporting the police, supporting the firefighters. In 2 months, I will celebrate my 43rd anniversary as a social worker. I remember, Jim, when you worked at Children's Services, and we would say good morning. I'm still there. I hope to retire December 30th. But all I ask, it was told to me a long time ago, and I ask that this is my town. This is your town. This is your town. This is your town. I ask that you consider what everyone has said tonight. I will admit the big thing I came for was for the quarry and was for Nicklin Avenue. I'm not a politician. I can't give you all these fancy words and all these fancy lectures, but I can speak from my heart. I have 5 little grandsons, from 1-year-old to 11-year-old. I want them to be as proud of Piqua as I am. And if they can't be, then something needs to happen with our city. But you know what? Like I said, this is my city and this is your city. So be proud of what we have. I'm asking you, with all the sincerity of my heart that I can, use wisdom with understanding before you make a solid decision, because you make the decision for this city, you make the decision that you have to live with. You make the decision for all these people that are here. You make that ultimate decision. And you know what? I'm going to use my freedom of speech right now. I think you need to pray about it.
Nothing wrong with that, yes.
Because if you don't, we serve a mighty God. And if you don't go his way, this city will not succeed in any way, shape, or form. So please, use wisdom with understanding. And really, if you don't pray, maybe it's time you start.
Every day.
Because we are one country under God. That's why we were created. That's why America was founded. And I just hope you really consider the decision that you make. Like I said, not only for your city, but for your citizens that live here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tell it was from the heart. Yep.
Steve's coming back.
Steve, you coming back? Real quick.
I do have one question on this developer for the Wilder redevelopment project. I've heard that this developer is from out of state. Is that correct?
I'm not sure where he's located.
Yeah, the name of the development group is Wayland Ventures. They're located in Louisville, Kentucky, and they have done work in Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky. They're doing quite a bit in Dayton right now. But they're also a consulting firm known as City Visions, and we're part of the putting together the strategic plan for the riverfront revitalization. So they're very familiar with Piqua, I guess, is a long way to get there.
Well, my only question is, you know, we've got developers, I'm sure, in Piqua, in Miami County, in the Miami Valley, in Ohio. But we got to hire somebody from Louisville, Kentucky?
We didn't hire them. They came to us and expressed an interest. All I did was introduce them to the site. They determine if it's something that's of interest to them, and then they proceed with the necessary conversations to figure out whether or not it's something they want to pursue.
And we were also told that they have only in the past done industrial-type development, not homes. Is that correct?
Actually, no, they do mixed use. They do industrial, but not really. They're more so mixed use and historic preservation. This is, I won't say a new foray, but it's something they've been exploring for a couple years in terms of how can you build housing that meets the needs of the community without subsidizing it, but still keep it at a reasonable price so that, you know, average citizens can afford it.
So we're kind of guinea pigs for them then.
I wouldn't call you guinea pigs at all. They're an award-winning developer, so I would not, we have developers approach us all the time, and there are some who we would not want to have a conversation with, and there are others who you know by reputation who you're happy to have them interested in your community.
Well, have you received interest from anybody other than this group out at Louisville?
Yes, not specific to this site, but yes, we talk to developers all the time. And to the earlier comment, I'm more than happy to share any of the information that we have that has been made available to us with anyone, anytime they want to call or meet. I've initiated one meeting because I got a call from two of the residents in the neighborhood, and the information that they were sharing was completely inaccurate. I don't know where it came from. So the idea was, can we try to get some facts in front of the group? I don't know how well that meeting was received, but we're certainly not trying to hide anything. And I think the developers' response to that was to listen, and as you've heard, they've since refined their plans based upon the feedback that they heard from the neighborhood. So I think that's a responsible thing for them to do. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to take it to where you'll like it.
Well,
but they're
I
doing
hope
the
they
right
have a
thing.
tape of this meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
City manager's report.
Anyone else? All right. At this time, we will hear the city manager's report.
Good evening. I'll be brief. First of all, I'd like to thank Commissioner Grissom and Commissioner Lee for mentioning the website. The new website launched today, and it really is a reflection of the amazing things going on in the community. It's going to provide access for everybody to have the information that we talked about tonight, the information that will be upcoming, easier to find in a document repository instead of trying to navigate a 1990s website to find the information you need. So it'll be a good way for us to communicate things way ahead of the meeting so that it'll be transparent. That's what we're working towards. And please sign up for Piqua Alerts so that when new things do crop up that you get alerted. That being said, just a quick update on the resurfacing. They're supposed to be done with the full depth repairs by Thursday evening this week. They'll start Sunday evening with the mill and fill, and that'll be on both the east and westbound sides. That should be completed in about 7 days, weather permitting. It's 2.6 miles of lane miles of roadway. And then with the pavement markings, they're anticipating the project to wrap up on October 15th of this year. So that'll be a nice enhancement. And lastly, we're continuing our conversations with Rita and about the transition. The finance department is going to be having information that's gone out, and you should have all received a letter by now. I received mine, which was interesting to get a letter at home with my own signature on it. That being said, the tax department will be setting up appointments during the next season to assist residents through the transition to a more digital format. And with that, that's the end of my report.
Will there be anybody in the tax office after Jan 1 of 23?
Yeah, so the idea being that 23 is going to be a transition year. And so, you know, with the new website and with the tools that Rita have, which is far exceeds what we have, that transition year will be to move everybody to the Rita website in their format. And I've used Rita in where I've lived previously. If you prefer a paper copy, they mail it to your house. You can request that. So if you're not comfortable using digital format, there are other ways to submit.
But after the year of transition, we will no longer have a tax office here in the city building.
There'll still be a tax department because there are other obligations that we have, quarterly, business, business income tax, things of that nature. but the services are going to be migrated over to Rita because they do have a better service than we've provided, believe it or not. Moreover, the tax collections that we've not collected over the last 8 years, which amount to a lot of money, they're going to increase those tax collections, so we'll receive income tax that goes to the general fund to build things that you all want to see that we haven't collected in the past. And they're going to be very aggressive in their collections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, comment. Commissioner Lee?
Well, I tell you what, it was a heck of a meeting tonight. A lot of people came up forward and expressed their heartfelt and sincere feelings about the quarry and about the Nicklin project. And just know that we're with you. I mean, we know as much as you know. We put the same information out. And as far as the quarry, annexing the property was always in favor of. Quarry, nah, not so much so. Never been in favor of it. But it is, you know, it's out there. We've tabled it at this point to get additional information. We'll see. You know, and there are other hoops that they have to jump to, regulatory hoops that they'd have to jump to if they were to even, if we designated it I-2 and they were to go, there's no guarantee that there's going to be a quarry there. All right? You know, and that's just something. And as far as Nicklin, it's at the school board right now. I mean, they still own the property. I mean, it's a process they got to go through. Once they get rid of the property and it goes to PIC and the developer comes and talks to Chris and that board, then it'll come to us eventually at some point in time. But, you know, if it's that dense, I mean, I'm with you guys. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I mean, that's your home, and you know, I live right down the street on High Street. I mean, I'm not liking that. I mean, I went to Wilder. I mean, I used to walk there every day. I can't imagine seeing 48 homes in that small block. I mean, I understand. So just know that we do listen, we hear you, we are responsive, and we will do what it takes. And you guys have done your due diligence by showing up tonight, you know, and I appreciate that. And we're listening to each and every one of you, and do additional diligence by looking on the website, our new website, for the information. We're going to get as much information. We're not trying to be secretive or hide anything from you. We want you to have as much information as we have, so that you guys can have informed opinions like we have. So whatever it takes to get you the information, that's my goal, because I want you to be well informed and to have a say-so in this town. This is your town. Just like Mrs. Wenrick said, I love that woman. And she spoke from the heart, and pray about it. I pray every day, Mrs. Wenrick. One of the things I'm gonna do, I have a half-hour drive to work. One of the things I'm gonna do is pray for you and pray for clarity in some of these decisions that are coming up. So thank you guys for showing up, and I'll shut up so that other people can go so we can get out of here. Thank you.
Yeah, my pizza's still in the warmer, I hope, so we'll see about dinner when I get done here. So just one thing, I would remind the public that the Johnson Farm and Indian Agency will have its fall activity on Saturday, the 1st of October, and canal boat rides and all kinds of good things. Last big event for the public for the year, so come join us for that.
I just want to appreciate everyone coming out. One of the biggest things I've been advocating since I've gotten the commission is trying to get involvement from people. I've seen a huge community involvement just in our neighborhood. I see a lot of familiar faces, met a lot of new ones, and I just appreciate it. And I want to keep that going. I know sometimes more topics are affecting you or not so much. People tend to listen when it will affect them. I want to keep it going, though, so that people are involved in what's, as a city as a whole, and what we can build as a community and as a city. I love the fact that my neighborhood's, has came together, whether favor or not. just to have open conversations and meet new people. I mean, that's what community is all about. I see Carol Austin, and then she started doing the community garage sales, just doing a lot of those different things for our community. I mean, that's just huge, and that's what's going to build us as a better city. But how do we keep that moving forward, too, not just stop after one topic? How do we get more people involved? And that's what I'm still trying to do, as well as communication. Transparency is one thing that I think I brought up tonight. People don't think there is any. That's one thing as a commission that we've been working on for a year, 2 years, the city website. Anything that we can do. Some of the hardest thing is communication. How do we get information out there? And I've seen the impact of your neighbors. I mean, yeah, don't just stop tonight. You know, continue talking to each other, continue working as a community.
Continue coming here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we want to see you again.
I do.
Come back.
Especially you.
But thank you, I appreciate
Very
it.
good questions tonight. I like it. Both of you.
Is that all?
Yep.
Okay. I just have a couple things. There's a chocolate walk Friday, September 30th from 3 to 7 Main Street. And Harvest Days is coming up Saturday, October 15th from noon to 7 p.m. Also, I have a Henry Ford quote.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. But working together is actually success.
Yes, it is.
So thank you very much for coming.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
I wasn't waiting, I'm sorry.
Motion carried.
All right, you can go home and eat a pizza too.
That wasn't